Hey, my incredible time-traveling amigos. It's your buddy Chronos, back with another mind-boggling episode of What If? On our epic channel. And guess what? We've made it to part 12 of our electrifying series. What if Deku became Saitama? Can you believe it? Get ready for an adventure like no other as we dive deeper into this jaw-dropping alternate universe. So grab your snacks, buckle up, and let's embark on this thrilling journey together. Chapter 30: The Symbol of Hope. Gym Gamma. The students were hard at work on their ultimate moves. The whole gym was live with activity, as many of them had gotten a grasp on what they wanted to do. They only had one more day of training before the exam, and everyone was giving it their all. Bakugo was making the most progress with at least 2 new moves made, and he was working to perfect them. Almost everyone else was able to come up with at least one, and they were all confident that they were ready for the exam, but that didn't mean the hard work stopped. One stood in front of Tokoyami who wanted to unveil a new move. "Come to me, Dark Shadow." With this order, Dark Shadow wrapped around Tokoyami like armor. "By covering myself with Dark Shadow, my strength is increased. I call it Abyssal Black Body." One smiled. "Impressive. You focused on overcoming your close combat weakness." One raised a hand. "Hit my hand as hard as you can. Let's test this increase in strength." "Very well. Here I come, one." He rushed at the hero and punched his hand with all his and Dark Shadow's strength. One caught the punch, genuinely impressed at this increase. "Good job, Tokoyami. That's definitely one weakness down. Now, let's see how it works in an actual fight." They were in a corner of the gym, and he jumped back while getting into his stance. "Let's go!" Tokoyami rushed at him, and the two began trading blows. The most glaring weakness to this was that Tokoyami's hand-to-hand skills needed to improve to make this move more effective. Eraserhead looked out at his students. Hearing someone at the door, he turned to see Small Might entering. "All Might?" He leaned against the door. "Yeah, I am here," he said dryly. He went into his muscle form. "Because I've got the day off and have nothing better to do," he said much more upbeat before he deflated. He walked towards his fellow teacher. "So how are things going in here?" "They all have a good handle on what they want to do for their ultimate moves. As you can see, some are booming with creativity," he said, turning to Bakugo. The blonde stood on a cement structure, with a wall of rock in front of him. He faced out his right hand while making a circle with his left and putting it in front of it. "Concentrate a blast through a single point." He fired an explosion that came out as a focus beam that pierced the wall of cement in front of him. "AP shot!" he called out. When the attack finished, he was proud of the hole he put in the wall in front of him. "Yes! I did it!" he exclaimed confidently. All Might looked up at the blonde, proud of his progress. "I see that young Bakugo's doing well. No surprise there." He turned and watched the rest of the class train. He spotted one trading blows with Tokoyami. While it looked like a one-sided beating, he could tell he was forcing him to get better at hand-to-hand combat given his new move. He was proud of all his students. Seeing the determination in all of them to improve was a true joy as a rock Bakugo just blasted began to break, and a large chunk of it flew towards the unsuspecting All Might. Bakugo saw this. "Hey, look out!" he warned. It all went in slow motion. The chunk flew towards All Might, who never saw it coming. One deflected a swipe from Tokoyami and caught a glimpse of what was happening. He was about to leap into action when a flash of red caught his eye. Momo threw a spin kick that completely shattered the chunk of cement. All eyes that were watching fell on her as she landed. She had a confident smile as she turned to the skinny, blonde, former hero. All Might gave her a look of intense pride. "Thanks for the save, young Yaoyorozu." "It was no trouble at all Might." One had stopped sparring with Tokoyami. "And here I wanted a chance to show off." "Well, next time be faster, one," she said slyly. One had no words for that statement. All Might looked up at Bakugo, who had a rare look of concern. "Sorry for the scare, young Bakugo." The blonde's eyes shifted back to his usual angry one. He fired a blast. You watch yourself, All Might! The skinny man couldn't help but hold on to that statement, looking at his hand. Watch yourself, huh? I guess it only makes sense. To everyone else, I'm a weakling now, someone who needs to be protected, he thought. Hey, I see you've gotten faster, Yaoyorozu, and you've got more power behind your strikes. I remembered my training with Mirko during my internship. I still don't have an original attack that could be considered an ultimate move, but I do feel I'm ready for the exam. I agree with that, said the voice of All Might, who approached the two. I'd say from that kick, you're definitely ready for this exam. Once sent several people by the entrance, he turned to see Vlad King walking in with Kendo and Monoma. Hey Vlad. The hero only gave a nod in response. It's Class B's turn to use the gym. Eraser, get your kids out of our way. Eraser turned to his colleague, slightly annoyed. You're not trying to kick us out when we have 5 whole minutes left, are you? Monoma stepped up. Hey, didn't you hear? The provisional exam has a 50% pass rate. That means your whole class might fail. He mocked them smugly. Kaminari walked up behind one as Kendo walked up to speak to one. Wait, is that Monoma's hero costume? Kaminari asked Kendo. Well, since his quirk is copy, he said he didn't need anything too eccentric, just that. Kaminari's sweat dropped at the other blonde's antics. This is him toned down. I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't hear me. Like someone else I know, one said, entering the conversation. Still, I find you all being pitted against each other in the same exam, a conflict of interest. You can either aid or sabotage each other. Tokoyami called back Dark Shadow. Unfortunately, his words are correct. If we're in the same facility, we'll crush each other. That's the hand fate has dealt us. Vlad King turned to him. That's exactly why we organize it for Class A and B to take the exam in separate locations. They're taken twice a year, one in July, the other in September. Monoma let out a sigh of relief at hearing this. Oh, what a shame we won't be facing each other directly. Wow, this guy's nuts, Kirishima stated. One shook his head. Since he's been helping the first years, it didn't take long for him to realize that Monoma's inferiority complex runs extremely deep. This all comes from an attempt to protect himself because he feels inferior to everyone around him because of his quirk's lack of offense. You're not fooling anyone, Monoma. I can sense you're actually relieved about this. The blonde put up a fake smile so as to not show that once seen right through him. Well, since our training day is over, I think I'll head over to the support studio, Ida said. I'll go with you, one said as Vlad looked at him. Don't worry, I'll be back. Mineta chuckled a little. You're just hoping for another face full of Hatsume's boobs. One looked at him unamused. Momo also noted the shift in the hero. What is he talking about, one? You didn't do anything disgraceful, did you? She asked with a serious, no-nonsense look. One smiled sheepishly. It's nothing. Hatsume blew up the design studio and I happened to be in the right place at the wrong time to end up in a compromising position with her. How compromising? Kendo asked slyly. Mineta smiled slyly. Her on top and smothering him with her 10 tense boobs. Mineta, have some decorum. Ida, you ready? Yes, let's go. He walked towards the exit with one following him. Kendo watched the two leave. She turned to Yaoyorozu. Hey Yaoyorozu, do you like one? Momo wasn't expecting this question and couldn't help but blush. I think he's an amazing person. What about you, Kendo? He's an amazing guy. I saw his video. I can't believe he's quirkless. But I guess I'd call him my hero crush. Momo looked at her, completely unsurprised by that statement. I see. I think we should have a sleepover with all the girls. I'm all for that. I'll ask my class and see what they say. Support Course Design Studio. One and Ida walked towards the support department. A lot's happened in the past few days. He's gone back and forth with several students, interested in the upgrades they want to make to their costumes. So Hatsumi is done with your upgrades? One asked the engine teen. Ida chopped. That's right. I wanted a way to improve the cooling process in my legs. Though she tried to give me a useless item that almost blasted me through the ceiling, she finally got it right. That girl's actually pretty amazing. I get what Power Loader said, you should definitely treasure your relationship with her. I've never met a support course student as talented or passionate as her. Her passion for what she does is truly inspiring, Ida said with a smile. Still can't believe she gets away with blowing up the studio as much as she does, one said as they arrived at the support department. He sensed a blast coming. Look out! He quickly warned Ida as the door blew open from an inward explosion. One sensed a familiar presence on the other side of the door before it exploded, and when it did, they went flying outside. He was able to catch them as smoke filled the hall. Okay, it's official, this is perfectly normal. You okay, Melissa? He asked the blonde he was holding up by her waist. The American girl shook off the ringing in her ears and the fresh sting of the explosion. She opened her eyes upon registering the voice. One? Hello, having a good day? One asked with a warm smile. Melissa registered his words. She then noted the hero was holding her up by her waist, pretty close to him. She started to blush, finding her words. Yeah, pretty fine, she managed to say through her fluster. One put her down. That's great. Good to see you adjusting to life in UA. She smiled at him. It's been a fast adjustment. But I wasn't expecting this to be my new norm. She turned back to the room as the smoke cleared. Speaking of which, Hatsum, what the heck? She exclaimed, more annoyed than angry as she went back inside to confront the Pinkette. Sorry, Shield, my baby still needs some work, she said, completely disregarding the blast just now. While I admire your passion, that's the second time this week your creative process could have killed me. She turned to the independent hero. Thank you, One. Hatsumi perked up excitedly, a huge smile on her face as she registered the independent hero who walked in with Ida. In a flash she was in his face. You're back. Hello, Hatsum, One said cordially. The Pinkette had been all over him since he first came to the support department, insisting that she make him an item despite his polite insistence that he didn't need anything. So what baby can I whip up for you today, One? I told you I'm fine for the time being. I love your passion, but if I took gear from someone else my sidekick might get upset, he said with a playful smile. Hatsum's eyes and smile widened at these words. Your sidekick made this suit? She quickly shifted and started feeling on One. I can't tell if it's just your muscles or the suit, but you're pretty tough, aren't you? It's a little bit of both. My sidekick did a good job on making this suit the most efficient it could be. I can tell. Who is your sidekick anyway? One smiled innocently at her. Come on, Hatsum, you know I can't tell you that. She quickly turned around. Worth a shot. I have to get back to making new babies, so bye. One raised a finger. We're actually here for Ida's upgrades. She turned back to him. Oh yeah, that. In an undisclosed location. Tachibana sat in a darkly lit room by herself. This was her meditation room. Strengthening and maintaining her mental fortitude was one of the most important lessons she's ever learned, and she would need it to be at its peak for what was coming. Her team was small, but strong, and each of them possessed the strength and abandon to reach their individual goals, which all happened to coincide at the moment. It's been a long couple of days. She wasn't so heartless to throw the injured LOV out, but that didn't mean she wanted them around either. It didn't take long to heal them, but they were starting to become too comfortable. On top of that, Tamura has been in a mood since AFO was locked up, and once recent accolades had him oozing with malice. Her team tolerated them more than she did, but they were quickly wearing out their welcome. She sat crisscrossed on the floor. She had quitted the storm of her mind when she felt a presence outside the door. Opening her eyes. Come in, Kurojiri. The black mist slid the door open and came in. He was wearing dress clothes befitting a bartender. Hello, Tachibana. he said to the back of the woman who was still sitting. I assume your presence here is that you've found a place for you all to go? Yes, I have found a new place for us to hide out. We'll be out of your hair shortly. Good. Her eyes drifted to the right, sensing the black mist wanted to ask him something. Is there anything else you want to tell me? Stain wanted me to tell you he needed to speak with you. I'll be right there. All right. I'm going to check on Tamura Shigaraki. Taki bit her tongue, annoyed with the fact he always addresses him by his full name. You do that. Remind him again that if I find out he's used his quirk on a single thing in the place, he won't have hands to use it again, she said while releasing a wave of power aura that froze Kurogyri with fear, hammering home her words. Kurogyri couldn't stop his trembling. He wouldn't put it past Tachibana to kill Shigaraki if he stepped out of line, which was all the more reason he needed to find them a new place and get out of here. I will. Excuse me. Taki stood up and stretched. Okay, let's go see what Stain wants. Not like I don't already know. She left the room and headed to where the hero killer was. Stain was in the training hall, a new guardless sword in hand as he faced a practice dummy. In a flash of speed he struck it, causing it to burst into splinters. Stain looked at his sword, a satisfied smile on his face. Finally, I'm ready to continue my work. He turned towards the entrance to the cast room and saw Spinner, Dabi and Toga watching him. Spinner was a little nervous, Dabi looked nonchalant, while Toga was clearly excited. What do you three want? Dabi was the first to answer. Sorry for spying on you, we're big fans. Toga pumped her fists. You're my hero, Stain! It's an honor to meet you, Spinner said excitedly. Stain looked at the three, eyeing them up. You three are a part of the LOV. Why would you join a fool like Shigaraki? Again, Dabi spoke first. Because I think you're right. I want to make your dream a reality. My dream? And what do you know of my ambition? Spinner stepped up. We know your words rang true. This country is full of fake heroes who care more for money and fame than anything else. That's what your convictions taught us. Once someone takes payment, they're not a real hero anymore. If you want to change things, you have to take action. Stain listened to every word coming off their lips, and everything they said was angering him as it sounded so fake and nothing like him. Shut your mouth. All three of them were thrown off by this. What? Spinner asked, shocked and confused. Stain started walking towards them, stopping when he was close enough. You don't understand me. You don't even understand yourselves. You're just a bunch of sad children mad at the world and ended up here. Not one of you can even control where you're going, nor do you want to. Everything I do is to create a stronger society, but that doesn't mean villains can't become my targets. So instead of being fanatic fools, I suggest you be weary of me. His words were threatening and very much serious. Stain's final words carried with them a wave of killing intent that terrified all three of them. Well, damn. You're more intense than I thought, Dabi said, suppressing his fear. Dabi made a blue flame burn from his right hand. You're not the only one who has a goal to fulfill. How about we go around? Spinner and Toga watched the situation unfold, either one wanting to make a move. Stain's words about killing villains was a very real threat. The tension was mounting between Dabi and Stain, and it wouldn't take long for a fight to break out. Deep down, Toga and Spinner were disappointed with the one who inspired them. Both were never understood by society and thought he of all people would understand them, but he essentially called them fake and sad children. Spinner was about to comment to try and diffuse the tension when a wave of pressure passed over them. He felt as if death itself was standing behind him as he also forgot to breathe. What is going on here? They all registered the casual tone of Tachibana, too fearful to turn around and look at her. Dabi deactivated his quirk as she walked past them, noting the look Stain was giving them. You three should pack any shit you have here. Kurogyri's found you a new place to hide out. You're kicking us out, Toga exclaimed. I was always going to kick you out, this isn't a hotel. Plus, I don't particularly like a single one of you. She paused for a moment. I take that back. Twice is just enough to casually amuse me, but that's not enough to let you stay. Ouch, my feelings are hurt. So why did you help us in the first place? Dabi asked. I'm not so heartless to throw injured people out in the cold. That being said, this was the final thing I ever intended on doing for Shigaraki. AFO's in jail, meaning the funds I was getting for babysitting him have dried up. Therefore, I no longer have any reason to give a damn what happens to him, and by extension, you all, from now on. Dang, you're brutal, Taki, Toga commented. What did I say about calling me by my given name? She cocked her head, gesturing to them to leave. Scram, Stain and I need to talk. None of them had the stones to argue and left the room. Stain watched them as they all left. Fools, every one of them. Not a single one of them has vision, only sight. I'd have killed all three of them if you hadn't walked in just now. I know. Feel free to end them at your leisure if you like, but Kurojiri said you wanted to talk to me? Stain raised his sword. Yes, I wanted to tell you I'm ready to get back to work. You've been doing great in your training since I brought you here. You've definitely gotten stronger. But I'm gonna need you for my plans moving forward. Stain seemed to know what she was getting at. So, you're finally doing that. She's been falsely imprisoned for too long. It's time to go get her. Stain noted the conviction in her words, as well as the determination in her eyes. Fine, I'll be there when you need me. When do you plan on doing this? 2 days from now, be ready. Fine. Stain sheathed his sword and walked past her. Taki turned her head, not fully looking at the hero killer. Don't do anything stupid, Stain. My work is anything but. And besides, I already have my next target. As Stain left, Taki's eyes went to the corner of the room. It's rude to spy on people, Gale. The man in question landed from the ceiling without making a sound. His invisible body becoming visible, a breeze of air coming with him, a sly smile on his face as he addressed his leader. How long have you known I was there? From the moment I entered this room. Why were you hiding in here anyway? I was curious about Stain's training. He never would have let me observe him without hiding, and you know how moody he can be. Plus, it reminded me of my shinobi training days. He smiled with his arms crossed. The same training you sucked at. Gale gave her a murderous glare. Watch your mouth. Tachibana merely gave him a nonchalant smirk. Anyway, we're finally enacting the first step of your grand plan? That's right. As I told Stain, it's time to go get Tsutsumi, and she'll be a pivotal piece to my plan moving forward. Speaking of which, how are things going on your end? The black-haired man smiled casually. It shouldn't be much longer. I need to check with some allies of mine to see if the final preparations are set. Taki gave him a stern, analytical look. Fine, keep me posted. She crossed her arms. Now what? Gale asked. Nothing. She made her way to leave the training hall when Gale continued to speak. You know, the wrench in our plans was even bigger than we ever imagined. She turned to him. You mean one? A wrench in your plans maybe, not mine. We're talking about a hero with godly power who happens to be quirkless. How is this not a bad thing for all of us? He asked her before thinking for a moment. Wait, you already knew. You know who one is, don't you? And what if I do? It's not like that could change anything. Just keep looking for your god or whatever, and stay on standby. We're making a move soon. Gale crossed his arms as he watched her leave. Noted. He thought, many questions still on his mind. Tachibana made her way back upstairs. She could sense several LOV members on this floor and was heading to one room in particular. Tachibana? She turned around to see her most loyal subordinate Satsuki Memori. She was a petite woman, shorter than average with shoulder-length black hair with a white headband in it, dark pink eyes with a white eye patch over her left. She wore a black gothic Lolita dress and her body language exuded respect. What is it, Satsuki? The woman bowed her head. I want to let you know I found the hacker we've been looking for. Ironically, she was difficult to track online, but once I linked her to the fool she shadows, finding her was easy. I haven't confronted them yet. I figured I'd leave that honor to you. Thank you, good job, Satsuki. The woman merely gave a satisfied HPMH in response with a grateful smile as she watched Tachibana walk away. While she was initially annoyed with having to be the one to heal the LOV, she swallowed her reservations as it was a request from Tachibana. Nothing would ever stop her from being faithful to her. She was going to go against the world with the ash-haired woman no matter how things turned out. Even if it meant she'd be replaced. She knew it was only a matter of time before Tachibana would free her from her shackles in Tartarus, and her plan would shake the entire country. She just hoped she'd always be beside her when it all went down. Your praise warms my heart, she said with a blush and a bright smile as she bowed her head. Taki saw the woman's mood brighten considerably. She gave her a charming smile. We'll be free of the idiots soon. Meet me in my room in half an hour. Satsuki smiled excitedly. It was almost too much to take. She happily bowed her head. Yes, ma'am. Tamura Shigaraki sat in his room. He had recovered physically, but his itching wouldn't stop and his desire to kill one was insatiable. Since AFO was beaten and locked away, he's thought of little else. He couldn't even celebrate All Might's retirement. His bloodlust was so palpable. He needed a release for his frustrations. He needed a way to move forward, but nothing came to mind. He remembered the faith and expectations his master had for him, how everything was for him, but now that he's gone, he can't even make a move because of one. Now that All Might's gone, he's basically been replaced with someone not just stronger, but the same sickening symbol type. He turned around as he heard his door open and in walked Kurojairi. The black mist saw him vehemently scratching his neck. We'll be leaving soon, Tamura Shigaraki. The red-eyed man kept a creepy, angry expression, not even answering him. How are you feeling? The guardian asked, genuinely concerned. There was a pause as the black mist's words filled the room. It won't stop. I want to destroy. I want to destroy everything. Starting with one. The venom in his words created a scene of pure seriousness. The serious energy of the room was interrupted by laughter. It was getting closer. Just behind Kurojairi, Shigaraki could see Tachibana approaching the room, laughing as she entered. Noting the two men looking at her, she composed herself. Oh, sorry, forgive me. She let out another chuckle. I was laughing at you. Her words were aimed right at Shigaraki, who gave her a death glare. Watch yourself, Tamura. It's not wise to anger someone who's not only capable of, but willing to take your life. She returned a glare of her own, scaring the man-child. So drop the look. Shigaraki lowered his head, not attempting to call her threat. Kurigirl turned to the woman. Please forgive him, Tachibana. He's still adjusting to the master's absence. I've noticed. She looked around the room and noticed there wasn't a hint of decay anywhere, at least for now. I just came to tell you it's time for you and your group to get lost. My team and I have actual important things we need to do, and you all being here has been enough of a distraction. Like what? Shigaraki exclaimed, almost demanding an answer. Changing the world and making it stronger. That's all you need to know. I don't care where you all go, but you gotta get out of here and talk to each other about how pathetic all your lives are or whatever the fuck you talk about. So you don't care that the master's gone? Tamura asked. Of course I care. He was my highest paying client. Now that he's gone, it'll put a little dent in my pockets, but nothing I can't handle because unlike you, I'm always going to eat. AFO needed me, not the other way around. And that's the difference between me and any other idiot connected to him. You're his pawns, while he was my client. Whatever the job was, he knew if the money didn't match the headache that would come from it, not to call me. So the money is all you ever cared about. I'm not his pawn. Shigaraki's eyes flashed with anger at that assumption. It's cute that you think that. You're free to do whatever you want, Tamura. Just know if you and your group of misfits get in the way of what we've got planned, I won't hesitate to kill you all myself." He looked at her angrily, a sly smile spread across her lips. "I'm actually glad one took care of AFO, he'd have taken advantage of my plan in the worst way. This is perfect timing, All Might's retirement was just a bonus, and society's moving in the direction that will make this so damn easy," she thought, excited for her plan to set in motion. "Tachibana, what is your end goal?" Kurogyri asked her, genuinely curious. The ash-haired woman merely smiled. "Let's just say the word, hero, is going to mean something when this is all over." Both men took in her words, both unable to fully understand what she meant. While Kurogyri kept a clear mind, Shigaraki was fuming. Hero, just that word sent into a rage. Is she trying to help them in some way? He couldn't comprehend it after everything she's done. The master had told him a thing or two about her, and warned him not to fight her under any circumstances. Noting that she doesn't see herself as a villain and that her retainer fee was the most likely the only thing keeping her from killing someone like him. It was time for the League to leave this place. He had no idea what to do next, but Kurogyri finding them a place made things a little easier. His itching was driving him crazy as thoughts of one wouldn't leave his mind. Whenever they met again, he'd make it stop, permanently. Jim Gamma. "Aha!" Kendo roared out as she threw a punch at a wall of cement, breaking through it. She grit her teeth, disappointed as she messed up again. "Dang it, I still can't get it." One stood behind her, arms crossed as he watched her train. "Don't become disheartened, Kendo, you are making progress. I told you learning this technique wasn't going to be easy to learn. We've been at this for 4 days and you're almost there." He picked up a cement rock. "Trust me, once you've got the motion down, training becomes second nature. Remember, at its core this technique is a 2-pronged attack. The first blow uses your PIP joints, then quickly folding your hand to bring your knuckles down for the second punch. While this may seem like one punch, it's actually a double-layered hit that maximizes power into the blow." He ended this lesson by performing the technique correctly, and the rock in his hands burst into dust from the impact. "It took me a week to learn this, and even then I could only do it with my right hand. There's 1 full day of training left, and I'm confident you can grasp the basics. Keep up the hard work." Kendo pumped her fists with new determination. The technique one was teaching her was called the Fuji no Kiwami. According to one, it was a technique invented by one of his masters, and if she could master it, it would give her a boost in power. "I will." "That's what I like to hear." He turned to his 2 o'clock and spotted Monoma. "Monoma looks a little lost over there. I'm gonna go help him out, wish me luck." He disappeared in a flash of speed. "Yeah, good luck. You'll definitely need it with that weirdo," Kendo thought before she turned back to her training. Monoma turned around when he heard the sound of someone appearing next to him. He wasn't surprised to see it was one. The hero waved. "Hello, Monoma, making any progress?" The blonde put up a fake smile. "I'm doing just fine. I've come up with a few strategies that will help us pass the exam. I can hold more quirks than before, and for longer. This exam will be a breeze, allowing us to easily crush Class A." One rolled his eyes behind his cowl. "You do realize this rivalry and or animosity towards Class A is very one-sided, right? Says you. Those egomaniacs love to hog the limelight, proclaiming they're so much better than everyone else when they've caused every problem we've had this year." He shot back defensively. "Or maybe, heroes don't get to pick and choose when they fight, so instead of running, whenever a crisis happens they act like heroes and take care of it, allowing themselves to learn from each experience." The blonde had no response. "Monoma, why do you care so much about what people think of you? You clearly feel inferior to everyone around you because of your quirk, but I sense it runs deeper than that." Monoma turned to him. "I've heard it my whole life. You can't be a superhero with that power. Dot." He looked at his hand. "Sometimes being a hero means you have to embrace your worst qualities." One crossed his arms. "Why, I don't entirely agree with that. That's not what you do, Monoma. All you do is try to make others feel bad to build yourself up. creating a situation where you've lost out on a potential ally who would let you use their quirk. One sighed. Monoma, I can't tell you what to do. But as someone who was also told they couldn't be a hero because of their shortcomings, don't focus so much on others, just prove what you need to yourself. He said before leaving to speak with Vlad King. Monama had a stoic expression, taking in one's words and unable to even throw a defensive remark. The training day came and went with Class B. Each and every student benefited from his advice and was able to come up with suitable super moves to prepare them for the upcoming exam. One stood beside Vlad King as they faced the class after the training day. You all have improved considerably. There's one more day of training, don't let me down! Vlad exclaimed to the class with everyone giving the affirmations. Training ended and the class began to disperse. Some were going to the support department, while others were just talking. It would be time for dinner soon, and most of them would head back to the dorms. Kendo and Tokage walked up to one. Another day of training in the books. How do you two feel? One asked the girls. Sore. Tokage rescinded. But I'm feeling really confident about the provisional exam. She flexed her arm while gripping her bicep. One smiled. I love your energy, Tokage. But don't forget the best heroes are the ones who care the most. Being strong enough to beat the bad guys is just the most noticeable thing, but I guarantee you the person under the mask matters more than what they can do. The lizard girl gave him a sharp-toothed smile. I got you. Kendo built up the courage to ask him a question she's been wanting to ask since she saw him. One? What's up, Kendo? The red-headed girl blushed. Do you want to come to our dorm for dinner tonight? One's body language was calm. I'm sorry, but Class A already invited me to eat with them. Kendo was saddened by these words. But dinner isn't for a while. I'd be happy to hang out until then. Of course, you play favorites with that degenerate Class A. Monoma slyly commented. That's not how it is, Monoma, and you know it. One shot at the blonde. One got between the girls and wrapped an arm around both their waists. Let's go, shall we? Both girls brightened up at this as they left the gym, followed by several of their classmates. One spent the afternoon hanging out with Class B up until it was time to eat dinner with Class A. He had gotten a lot of work done today, and it was nice to just link up and have fun with the students. Since the first day he came to help them train, everyone was adamant at showing him their dorm rooms. By now he had seen all of Class A and B. He also noted about the design of the dorms. Either dorm looked exactly the same, with both having slightly different interiors. He enjoyed his time with the students, as he knew that he would have to meet up with Fujioka for his interview later that same night. Almost all of the girls from Class B and most of the boys were good company. It was fun getting a feel for each and every person's personalities. After waving goodbye to Class B, promising to eat with them another time, he went and enjoyed a delicious dinner with Class A, with both Hagakure and Ashido trying to feed him, much to Momo's masked annoyance. She wanted to spend time with her boyfriend, but she had to pretend he wasn't her that, and knowing other girls actively wanted him was slightly annoying since she couldn't express her feelings without revealing Izuku. Once they were all fed, one took his leave, looking forward to seeing what they did tomorrow. Later that night in the news studio, one was sitting in a chair across from Miko Fujioka. The beautiful Fox reporter had a look of excitement as the staff set up his mic. She had waited for this moment for a long time. One has never done an interview, and when he finally decided to do one after releasing his video, she was the first one he called. She was actually surprised to get his call, even though she urged him to do so on live TV, and after some talking she knew they had to set this up. This was going better than she could have hoped. Katakuri had left for the day, so there was no chance of him bursting in and ruining this. The crew finished with one. We all set? One asked as he straightened out his shirt. The golden-haired Fox smiled beautifully at him. We're good to go. The crew left the set, leaving the two sitting across from each other, as everyone prepared to start shooting. Again, I'm very happy you called me to do this interview. One smiled at her. Well, this has been a long time coming. Not to mention I much prefer you to Katakuri, Maybe one day I'll find out what his beef is with me. Well, lucky for you that day won't be today, he's already gone for the day. She smiled slyly as she brought a finger to her lips. And I was able to keep this interview on the DL, so there shouldn't be any antagonism. I am eternally grateful. One gently with a small bow. You bet. On an unrelated note, I'm a big fan actually. You're pretty amazing. I do my best. I'm not the only one, you're pretty impressive yourself. Beautiful, still in your 20s, and you've accomplished so much in the media world. I'm impressed. Fujioka's expression was surprised yet sensual. Well, aren't you a smooth talker? One gave her a charming smile as the crew alerted them that it was time to start. The two centered themselves as the camera began recording. Fujioka got the signal from the cameraman. I'm here with Mizutafu's own vigilante turned Japan's first independent hero, One. She gestured to the scene. Our favorite green-clad hero decided to show up to the studio. Thank you for being here. She turned to him with a beautiful smile. Not a problem at all, Fujioka. Thank you for having me. The city's been relatively quiet today, and that's a good thing for everyone. One responded with a charming smile, first to her, then the camera. One, who was your favorite hero growing up and how were you inspired to become a hero? Like a lot of people growing up, my favorite hero was All Might. What inspired me the most was the desire to save people no matter how bad things were. But a weak, quirkless kid doesn't fit the bill. So I trained to gain the strength to be a hero who could do the same thing, no matter how hard it was, because I believed even in hard times he wouldn't have given up. Your video has made a lot of noise in recent days. I myself am still having a hard time believing you're actually quirkless. I'm sure I'm one of many people who would have never guessed. I honestly can't be surprised by that. Is it that hard to believe you can be strong just from training? He shook his head with a sly smile. Your level of strength? Yes. Yes, it is hard to believe. She responded, her golden eyes looking at him analytically. Maybe not to my specific level, but I can guarantee that with a little hard work and determination, you can be super, and all the way human. One shrugged. I'm just a normal guy who didn't give up on his dream. That's what it really all boils down to, and it's why I'm here today. Fujioka took in his words. One, you're quirkless. Would you consent to a test right now? Sure. One took off his right boot and sock as several crew members brought out a white board and a miniature X-ray. One put his foot on the board and after a moment the scans were done. You know, normally you'd put a cover over me to protect me from radiation. It's a momentary thing, plus I thought you were immune. Fujioka shot back. Still though. After a while they got all the pictures they needed and left the set. One, I watched your video. It must have been difficult to strive for so long just for no one giving you a chance. How did that make you feel? One crossed his arms. It hurt. It really hurt. All I ever wanted was to be a hero. But time and time again my dream was constantly stomped in the dirt. My peers, my teachers, even heroes told me to give it up and find a realistic dream. I put my faith in the hands of the same people I had to trust to give me an opportunity, and they wouldn't even do that. They unilaterally decided I would fail. His emotions began to rise. I've accepted it, but I'll never forget it. From their perspective, you don't think they may have been trying to look out for you? Ms. Fujioka, just because you believe in something doesn't mean I have to. You can't call me a failure if you never gave me a chance, and that's essentially what everyone has done. Just because I tried when they themselves wouldn't have. She registered his words. People seem to be looking to you to take up All Might's mantle and become the new symbol of peace now that he's retired. What are your thoughts on that? Let me say it here and live first, Miss Fujioka. I have no intention or desire to replace All Might or become the new symbol of peace. Why not? Honesty, it's just a way of maintaining the status quo. Fujioka was shocked by this statement, along with everyone in the room. One man cannot shoulder the problems of an entire country. No matter how strong you are, having power doesn't mean you can do everything by yourself. Even if it works for a while, you'll eventually lose yourself because you can't be everything for everyone. Don't misunderstand me. All Might did a great job as the symbol of peace. He made the entire country feel safe and protected, allowing most people to live happy lives without worry. But he made a lot of mistakes in regards to the people who don't fall into the normality of society. I also fall into the category, so I'm able to see things most just don't pay attention to, and get a good read of people. It seems like you feel very deeply for what would be considered outcasts. One shrugged. Honestly, most villains I come across are just people who don't know what to do with their quirks, so they use them for stupid things. I have to stop them, but most criminals I face aren't necessarily evil, just hurt people. I've seen it too many times to count. So, you think we should overlook criminals who break the law just because of circumstances? No. All I'm saying is that we, as a society, should have enough empathy, understanding and respect for people so as to not create villains like that in the first place. He looked the fox woman right in her eyes. Seriously, I have so much empathy for people in that position because I fully realize that could have been me. You're saying you may have become a villain? No, I had a phenomenal support system. But without that, and if my spirit had been broken, there's a very real chance I'd have gone down a different path. Most people just want to be understood, and that's not so hard if you put in the smallest amount of effort. 1. What does that mean? One of the things I've always been curious about is who's the person underneath that mask. She gestured to all of him. What I mean by that is, I've seen the way you carry yourself and how much that resonates with people. You have this immense care for people in general, and it doesn't always have to be someone you physically fought to save. What do you want one to mean to people? As a hero, when people hear that name, what should come to mind? One took a breath as he registered the question for a moment. A friend. And that's what I think people need most. Being strong enough to handle the bad things is fine, but people don't need a one-man powerhouse to solve every problem. You need a friend. Since superpowers became the norm, we've essentially been stabilizing an era where people are afraid of contact with each other, paying more attention to the differences between us and putting too much weight into that. People don't even know their neighbors. Something may happen to them. Life can be overwhelming. Evolving technology is a headache. The pressure to succeed is stressful, and the sense of conformity is very difficult for many. One smiled smally. And you know, we run around, stressed, emotional, and with our own problems. And in the old days, neighbors treated each other like family, giving each other whatever they needed, so much so you didn't need to lock your door when you went out. Communities came together and helped and supported each other however they could because they understood they were in it together. There are history books about this. Japan was the rare exception of a peaceful nation. Our culture, temperament, and way of life was the envy of every Western country who knew of us. And I don't claim to be perfect, but I try to be virtuous and live with integrity. I care. And that's what I want people to know the most. When I show up, be it to save someone from someone else, prevent an accident, overturn a natural disaster, or just be someone you can talk to, you should always know I'm your friend. One spoke properly in his hero voice, perfectly articulating his words. Fujioka got chills from the passion in his words. She fought the urge to tell the crew to turn the heat up. What motivates you to help people? In terms of what's normally expected of heroes, you tend to go far beyond the job description. One scratched his right cheek. Well, first off, it's not a job to me, Ms. Fujioka. It never has been. I see it as just being a hero. Saving and helping every person I can reach in any way I can is all I aim to do every time I put on the suit. Some may see that as me doing too much or trying too hard, but it's really me just being the best hero I can be. I'm living my dream. I'm the hero I always wanted to be, and I'm only here to help. He smiled brightly as he answered. You say that a lot. You're just here to help. One of the things said most about you is that you don't care about the fame and fortune aspect of heroism. Is that true? Don't misunderstand, I love my fans and am grateful to those who support me. He clasped his fingers. But the fame and notoriety mean very little to me. I care about helping people and saving lives, that's it. A crime or situation happens, I take care of it, I move on to the next one. Since day one, even as a vigilante, that was always my thing. Honestly, I think that may be where a lot of animosity from pros come from. Many thought you were some illegal hero trying to take their thunder, Fujioka stated. That was never what it was. I could literally count the number of times I actually tried to escape pro heroes, which wasn't even a dozen times. I was just already gone to the next thing by the time they showed up to the scene. Fujioka chuckled a little, laughing into her hand. We interviewed several heroes during that time. It was not a lot of positive words for you. One chuckled. I can imagine. During my vigilante days, the only pro in this city who would actually talk to me was Air Jet. Rest in peace. He closed his eyes and bowed his head at those last words. But there was never any animosity towards them on my end. He gripped his chin. Now that I think about it, they could have taken the credit for all that and no one ever did. It's a sign of integrity, the fox lady said, eyeing him with a sly, sexy smile. It's a truly admirable quality because it really wouldn't have mattered to me. So even if no one knew who you were, you'd still have donned this suit and fought crime? Yes. I'm a hero, Ms. Fujioka. I'm not here for praise or reward, I'm just here doing what I do because I'm a hero. Once again, Fujioka was surprised by his words. She could tell this was his honest feelings. She was truly loving this interview. She was getting an honest insight on one. Who he is, what he thinks, and how he feels about certain things. Going back to your vigilante days, you pretty much came on the scene performing like a seasoned pro. Did you have any formal training? Were you just that good from the start, or did you learn on the fly? My only goal was to be a hero. So throughout the years I picked up various skills, not just those that pertained to fighting. When the time came, all I did was put it into practice. Experience trumps everything. You can train all day, but if you don't put it to use, it's a waste of time. The longer and more times you do something, the better you become at it. That's just natural. Fujioka gave a cute humph as she nodded, her golden eyes locked onto him. You're Japan's first ever independent hero. How did getting licensed make you feel, and did that change how you operated as a hero at all? When I was first given the license, I was shocked, because I had no idea that was even an option. Those who have looked into it know more about it now, but at its core, independence was initially a joke. An ultimatum that wasn't meant to be taken seriously. I mean, you can't use your quirk, you can't get paid for your work, and you don't get benefits, but you're legally a hero. I can see why most people wouldn't take that, but it's perfect for someone like me, he exclaimed, smiling while pointing to himself. I don't have a quirk first and foremost. I don't care about getting paid, and I'd be legal. Yes, thank you, I'll take it. He paused for a moment. You know what they say, when the system fails you, you create your own system. And in tech, and I have created a great system, so literally the only thing that changed was that I'm legal and doing what I've always been doing. And that was very invigorating for me. I want to talk about that day in Hosu a while back. She smiled slyly at him. You know what I mean? One rubbed his chin as he let out a small chuckle. Yeah, you're talking about Stain. The hero killer left a lot of tragedy in his wake. 23 victims, 17 deceased, and most of the other 6 unlikely to recover. He was able to escape capture and hasn't been seen since. Are you in any way close to finding him? At the current time, no. But I haven't forgotten about him. Given the state he was in after our fight, I expected him to be out of commission for a while. He elected not to say anything about Tachibana for the time being. For the time being, all I can do is wait until he slips up. Her expression became angry. You don't find that lazy or disrespectful to the victims? Of course not. But I literally have nothing to go on. His trail is beyond cold at this point. He raised his hands defensively. I know Stain's M.O. well enough that I can hypothesize who he may go after once he recovers, but that could be at least 50 heroes spread across multiple cities. I'm a detective, not a psychic. If someone happens to see him skulking in the shadows, say something and I'll be on it. The fox centered herself. What led to your confrontation in Hosu? Stain had already been on my radar prior to that. In Tech and I did an investigation and we deduced he was probably going to be in Hosu. We knew how he liked to strike, how he moved around, and a good idea of his quirk. We just didn't know who he was going to attack, and when he went after Ingenium's sidekick I was on him, and in Hosu that next morning. Did you suspect he was after Ingenium? I was pretty certain of it, that's why I wanted to get to Stain first. Admittedly, I didn't know Hosu very well, plus I wasn't familiar with Ingenium's patrol routes. So because of that I had to stick to looking for Stain in the places he liked to stalk from. I spread my senses, feeling any and everything in my vicinity. If I felt a drop of malice or bloodlust I would have been on him. He took a breath. Then I got a call from Intech. A plane is acting strange in Tokyo. I should probably look into it. Fujioka was surprised. Wait, you were looking for the hero killer when you learned about the hijacking? I didn't know it was a hijacking at the time. I theorized it but didn't know what it was until I got there. And I wouldn't have even known about it if it weren't for Intech. Again, my whole reason for being in that part of Tokyo was to find Stain. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but I was glad I was there and able to prevent a tragedy. Yes, thank heaven, Fujioka said with genuine relief. Moving on from that, I go back to the exact spot I was in when I got that call from Intech. I flew back and before I could even land I caught the scent of blood and sensed a wave of malice. Homing in on it I found Stain had already got to Ingenium. From there, everything that happened. Fujioka smiled, giving him a look of intrigue and ready to continue. And an awful lot happened. That whole interaction couldn't have lasted more than 5 minutes, but in the moment it felt so much longer. A street camera recorded the entire encounter. What was said in that alley caused quite the controversy. I wouldn't describe that as a controversy necessarily. I think it just created discourse and allowed us to talk about and question things we've never truly spoken about, just accepted. The fox smiled slyly at him, pointing a supple finger. And you and Stain had that discourse. You actually agreed with him to an extent. What Stain tries to teach isn't entirely all bad, nor is it wrong. Stain's whole deal is wanting to bring back the days of true heroism, essentially saying that modern heroism is full of fake heroes that care more about money and fame than saving people for no other reason than it's the right thing to do. Which is true to an extent. But I'm optimistic, and I think most pros have that heart of a hero. Stain's only real mistake was harming those he deemed a false hero. Personally, I feel he took the easier of two paths. It's easy to eliminate, or cut out those who aren't good enough. The harder thing is to lead by example and hopefully they pick it up. He called you a true hero. Is that what you strive to be and hope people learn from your example? I don't try, explicitly. But I hope I can set a good enough example that those who see and look up to me focus on what's important. And if that is subliminally passed on from one person to the next, especially children, then something can really grow from that. What's your take on heroes being paid, as a concept? One took a breath to process an answer. Personally, I don't feel one way about it or the other. Hero, as a term, has become a job. There are a lot of perks and dangers that come with the job, so from that perspective it makes sense you should be paid, and it makes it easy to just look at it as a job. Now, speaking for myself. Even when I was a vigilante, it made no difference if I made a single yen or not. I was still gonna suit up and go out there. Because it's my dream, and that comes with responsibilities that I consciously couldn't ignore. So any money made was truly irrelevant, because I wanted to go into this world, and did what I needed to. I bet your merchandise sales must be nice, she said slyly. Again, I'm eternally grateful for my fans' support. Keep in mind, as an independent hero, the government's not paying me, so anything monetary I get is purely business related. He chuckled. I honestly didn't know about the merch until after the fact. I get a call on my app talking about an opportunity. I usually ignore these, but this time I'm like, why not? He made a phone gesture with his hand. It went like this: ring ring, hello one, just letting you know we've got a bunch of merch with your face on it. Wanna make some money together? Sure. We'll be in touch. Click. Fujioka brought a hand to her mouth to hide her laughing. The business side of heroism is cool, but complicated and very funny, he joked. That's how it goes, she said playfully. You said you always did what you needed to. How deep does your sense of responsibility go? She asked warmly. Once tone became serious, he waved a finger. Let me put it to you like this. You have a girl that you're madly in love with, she invites you to hang out, but if you go spend time with her, a village full of people on the other side of the country will die a terrible death. Could you make that choice? He took a breath. Or you want to celebrate with someone close to you on a special day for them, but you've connected a string of kidnappings and have to move fast because you believe the perps have the means to move the victims overseas with a finite time to stop them. Again, what would you do? He asked, still upset at having not spent time with his mom on her last birthday because of that specific case. It sounds tough. It all goes back to that responsibility I mentioned. And being a hero is not for the faint-hearted. The fox woman nodded. For the next half hour, one answered all of her questions as articulately as he could. They talked about the Kamino incident, as much of the alien fight as he was allowed to say, his motivations, his interests and goals. They talked about some of his most notable cases and his thoughts on the current state of Heroes Society. Few more and then we're done. This one's for the lady fans. Are you seeing anyone right now? One couldn't help but chuckle. Yes. I have a girlfriend, and she's the most beautiful, smartest, caring, special person I've ever met. Fujioka gave him a charming smile. Sounds like an amazing and lucky girl. One smiled. No, I'm the lucky one. I can tell. You look like a boy in love. Is it that obvious? You really should have set up a couch, Fujioka, that way I could have jumped on it and pronounced my love to the world, he exclaimed, gesturing to the room. Do I look like daytime TV to you? Not yet, but you could be. She closed her eyes and shook her head, her beautiful face looking him in the eyes. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. She looked at her tablet, noting how most of her questions were answered. She only had a few left. One of the last things I want to ask you about is your style of combat. For the longest time people thought you were combining multiple quirks with martial arts prowess. But your fighting style is purely martial arts. Take me through what you know and how that contributed to your arsenal of super moves. It's funny how you mentioned super moves. I'm actually helping the UA first years train theirs. But to answer your question, I'm a master of 5 martial arts, but I know 6. I spent years mastering my disciplines and myself. No matter how difficult the training was, I learned my lessons, and that's what martial arts training is all about. Several of my super moves were actually taught to me by my masters, but most of them come from my own creativity and pushing the bounds. I wanted my moves to not only be strong and diverse, but versatile. By being imaginative, I was able to come up with moves that complement my physical abilities. What is your favorite super move? One stroked his chin as if he had a beard. That's a tough one because I've got so many. He raised a finger, smiling. I know, my Roaring Tiger Smash. I'm not familiar with that one. There's a reason for that. It has a very wide blast radius, making it not the safest to use in cities or largely populated areas, so I don't use it too often. Case in point, I used it in the Kamino fight. Her golden eyes widened. That's what that was. That blast of air that covered a large radius of the city. That's the one. It's my favorite move largely because of the process that went into creating it, making it my favorite original technique. The newest hero billboards are coming up soon and there's been speculation that you'll be pretty high on it. What are your thoughts on that? That's actually the first time I'm hearing about it. Honestly, and this is an unpopular opinion, I feel the hero rankings should be overhauled. Fujioka looked at him confused. In what way? Basically, popularity plays too much of a role in the rankings. The public's approval is fine, but does that hero's strength, cases solved, and effectiveness make them worthy of a high spot along with how much you like them? What does the concept of a ranking have to do with saving and helping people? Needing to be acknowledged for what you've done means very little, just as much as hearing how great you are. The action and knowing the ones you helped are okay should be more than enough. I wish I could spend more time talking to you, but I'm out of question and you need to go. Fujioka squealed. Hey, if you take nothing else away from this interview, just know. I'm just a hero, Ms. Fujioka. She put a hand to her cheek. You really are, aren't you? This was good, thanks for coming in. The pleasure was all mine. Fujioka put a finger to her lip. You know what, I have one more question. Shoot. Say you gave up and never became a hero, what career path would you have taken? No, let me rephrase. Given what's happened, all the business proposals you've been given, how do you intend on expanding your brand? Well, one thing I was always going to do was pursue a career in real estate, still plan to. If the business ventures stay as lucrative as it's been, I plan on starting charities and nonprofits to help people across the country and give opportunities to those who not only deserve, but need it. That's a very broad mindset. What's worse, never obtaining your dream? Or getting it and losing it? Dreams save us, they lift us up and transform us into something better. And until my dream of a world where dignity, honor, and justice are the reality we all share, I'll never stop fighting. Whatever knowledge you've gained or pain you've dealt with, you should share it with someone else in a positive way. Understand and share that pain with them so they won't have to go through that pain. Fujioka was once again amazed by the passion in the hero's words. He truly just wants to help everyone, and create a world that is truly peaceful and accepting of everyone. She's had her fair share of prejudice. While she's gotten a pass because of her looks, she's still a mutant. She's seen the plight and discrimination of that demographic through her own father, who was thankful that she came out looking like a human with fox features. You know, for someone who doesn't want to be the symbol of peace, you're becoming a symbol of hope. All I want is for everyone to live happily and be accepted for who they are. There's nothing wrong with being different. But as I said before, people put too much emphasis on our differences, which leads to division. My road wouldn't have been so bad if more people tried to understand me, but it's in the past. It's their fault. I blame them for all of it, especially everything that's great in my life. Most people like to mope and focus on the negatives. Let me tell you, if you want to blame people for everything bad in your life, you have to blame them for everything that's great. Every person who has discriminated against me, belittled and stomped my dreams in the dirt is the reason for all of this. He gestured to the room, referencing everything he'd done. I blame them for my desire to help others. I blame them for my capacity to feel and empathy. I blame them for the insatiable hunger to end suffering for any human I can. Because I suffered. It took me a long time to learn that life happens for us, not to us, and once you realize that, all the pain goes away and becomes something bright, something brilliant, something positive. Fujioka was numbed by his words. The passion behind them was truly heartwarming. They got the sign that the camera stopped recording. He clapped his hands and bowed his head. I beg of you, please don't take what I said in this interview out of context. That shouldn't be a problem. But I'm sure Katakuri will be in his feelings when this airs tomorrow, she said, bringing a hand to her mouth to hide her giggle. Maybe I should sit down with him next. One joked. Let's just say that man is very old-fashioned. I noticed. One stood up, preparing to leave. So, are you planning to patrol after this? She asked casually. That is the plan. Why, is there something else you want to ask me? She gave him a welcoming smile. Are you hungry by any chance? I could eat. Is this your way of asking me out? He joked with a charming smile. Her eyes became sensual. Don't get cocky. Besides, I've sworn off heroes. I was just wondering if we could get something to eat and get to know each other. It never hurts to have friends in the media after all. One pondered her words for a moment before agreeing. After she was ready, they left the building. They met up at the top Chinese restaurant in the city, with them both receiving surprised looks from everyone who saw them together. Fujika caught the eye of every man in the building, while one kindly took pictures and gave autographs to those who approached them, mostly kids. After ordering, the two talked as they waited for the food. Fujioka spoke how this was her favorite restaurant, and one talked about how he's been here several times with his masters, friends, and girlfriend. Fujioka told him about her life, why she got into journalism, and where she was trying to go in her career. One offered his support in any way he could and looked forward to building a friendly relationship with her, much to her joy. One opened up a bit and told her a few personal details about his life, experiences he's had, and the ups and downs within them. They exchanged numbers with the two, even sharing a few laughs together. The scene very much looked like a date. When the food came, they both ate and said their goodbyes after, both pleased with this newfound relationship. Tokaba National Stadium. It was the day of the provisional licensing exam, and students from all over were converging on the arena, all sharing the same goal of receiving their provisional licenses. Class 1A steps off their bus and looks around at the competition, each of them taking in their surroundings, several of them obviously nervous. "Oh man, I'm getting nervous," a worried Jiro stated. Mineta looked around, feeling very much small compared to everyone else. "I wonder what they'll make us do." He lowered his head, his jitters getting to him. "If I don't get my provisional license." Eraserhead came down to his level. "Mineta, don't think that you won't. Say you will." His spirit was lifted slightly. "Yes, sir." "Yo, Class A!" a voice called out to them. The entire class turned to see Izuku approaching them. Momo was especially surprised as she wasn't expecting to see him. "Izuku? Hello, gorgeous. You ready to be a semi-pro?" he asked with a charming smile. "What are you doing here? I thought you said you'd be busy." Izuku's expression was confused. "Really? Because there's no place I'd rather be than here to see you get your provisional license." Momo blushed as her heart fluttered, noting he lied to her so he could surprise her. She smiled warmly, truly in love with him right now. "Thank you for being here." "She's so lucky," most of the girls in her class thought at seeing this. Izuku smiled, giving her a confident nod. He raised a hand. "Hey, why are some of you looking so stressed? Perk up. You've got this." He turned to Aizawa. "Hey, Mr. Aizawa, is it cool if I hang out and watch the exam?" The teacher had his hands in his pockets while giving him a casual dry stare. "It's fine. This is a public forum, just behave yourself." "I'll be on my best behavior, sir." He looked at the class. "Seriously, why is the mood here so solemn? I heard one helped you guys train. You're aiming to become semi-pros, look more confident." Eraser faced his students. "He's right. Attitude may determine your altitude today. If you pass this test and get our provisional licenses, then you novice eggs will become fledgling chicks. You'll be semi-pros." His eyes became serious. "Do your best." The words of their teacher and Izuku seemed to light a fire in most of them. "All right, I'll become a chick," Kaminari stated confidently. "That's all good. Just don't fry, Kaminari," Izuku joked. Kirishima pumped his fists. "All right, everyone, let's call out the usual. Ready, set, plus." A tall boy wearing a dark, Captain Sailor hat with a golden S design entered the group. "Ultra!" he called out with passion and a fist pumped in the air. He startled Kirishima and Kaminari as the whole group turned to him. Other students wearing the same uniform passed by them. "It's not polite to barge in on other people's huddles, Inasa," said a purple-haired boy. Inasa noted he was rude just now, his fiery smile still on display. He brought his arms to his sides. "I am so extremely sorry!" he yelled out with hot-blooded sincerity, while bowing so low he slammed his head to the ground, cracking the pavement a little. Everyone was surprised by this strange yet intense act. Kaminari pointed. "Who is this guy? I don't trust his enthusiasm." "It's him," Aizawa thought, looking at the tall boy. Izuku scanned the students behind Inesa, noting the logo in each of their hats. Figures they'd be here. Momo, Jiro, Tokoyami and Ida looked at him. Check out their uniforms, namely the symbol on their hats. They're from that famous school on the other side of Japan, Siro commented. Ue in the east, Shiketsu in the west, Bakugo stated. Of all the hero courses out there, this is the one that actually rivals Ue, Momo thought as she took a quick glance at Izuku, who was sizing up the Shiketsu students. I know that look, you're wondering what might have been, aren't you? She noted Izuku had the same look the first time he came to Ue. He noticed she was looking at him and gave her an assuring smile that he was fine. Momo noted Inesa when he first walked up. She could help but think he looked familiar. Inesa got back up. I wanted to say it just once. Plus ultra. You see, I really love Ue High School. I am extremely excited to compete against such extraordinary students. I'm so looking forward to it, he exclaimed happily as blood slid down his forehead. Izuku smirked. Love the enthusiasm. But some of that excitement is sliding down your forehead. Try to keep it contained. Inesa kept his fiery smile, looking him in the eyes as he flexed his body. I will. A cute brown-haired girl stepped up. Hey Ue! Don't worry about our boy, this is totes the norm for him. Let's go, the purple-haired boy ordered. The brown-haired girl gave one final cute smile and a wave as she and Inesa joined their group. Inesa Yorashi, Aizawa said aloud. That's his name? Sounds hard to write. Izuku joked. Do you know him, Mr. Aizawa? Indeed. He's strong. He received top scores among the students admitted through recommendation. But for some unknown reason he decided not to attend UA. These words surprised the whole class. What? The guy says he loves our school but declined the offer when it was given, Siro said, clearly surprised. I thought I'd seen him somewhere. He really stood out during the recommendation exam, Momo said, getting the attention of everyone. If he's first year like you all and got top marks in the recommendation exam, that means he's just as good as you and Todoroki, Izuku said, glancing at the dual-haired boy who had a blank yet serious expression. He turned to his girlfriend. Do you remember what his quirk was, Momo? He could manipulate wind as I recall. I'm not too sure of the mechanics of it, but it was strong then and I'd bet even stronger now. That makes sense. Izuku looked at the back of the Shiketsu students, namely Yorashi. Inesa Yorashi, from Shiketsu High. You should keep an eye on him. Anyway, it's almost time for the exam. You lot should go and get changed and dash. Aizawa began when he heard a voice call him, a voice that sent chills down his spine. Is that you, Eraser? I recognize that skull anywhere, came a feminine voice. Everyone turned to see a woman with seafoam green hair wearing an orange bandana wearing a hero costume. I saw you on TV and at the sports festival, but it's been a while since we were this close in person. She had a happy smile as she approached the group. She stood in front of Eraserhead. Let's get married! No, he answered bluntly. Good one! She laughed harder while holding her stomach. You're as impossible to talk to as ever, joke. She flashed him a happy smile while giving him a thumbs up. Come on. If I was your wife, you'd have a life full of constant laughter. That sounds like a genuine nightmare, he replied dryly. Izuku chuckled. Talk about opposites attract, he thought as he silently enjoyed the situation Eraserhead was in. He sensed a shift in the man the moment he heard her voice, and the show was becoming more and more entertaining. Ashido squealed, her love senses going off. Izuku had a cool smile on his face. He liked Ms. Joke. Despite the headache her cousin caused him, he's always loved watching her fights. He learned how to be more playful in the field from watching her. Ajui put a finger to her cheek. You two seem very close. Joke swooned like a girl in love. As young heroes looking to make a difference in the world, a mutual love bloomed. No, it didn't. There's the quick retort. You're my favorite person to tease, future husband. Eraser sighed. If you're here, it means you brought your students. That's right. She looked over her left shoulder. Over here, everyone. This is Yue. She gestured to the group of students to come over. Izuku eyed the students, several of which caught his eye, most notably a boy with black hair and dark brown eyes with hair just as curly as his own. Whoa, it really is Class A. They're amazing. I've seen them on TV before. A girl with spiky blonde pigtails squealed. Second years from Ketsubutsu Academy. This is Class 2, they're my students. Ms. Joke explained. The black-haired boy approached the group, heading straight for Momo. He took both her hands into his, looking into her eyes with a charming smile. You're Yayorozu, right? I'm Shindo. Seems Yue's had it pretty rough this year. It must have been hard for you. His words were charismatic, but Momo could sense the deceit, so could Izuku, who narrowed his eyes at the boy. It's been troublesome at times, but nothing we couldn't handle. Beautiful in body and spirit, amazing. He moved on to Kaminari and Jiro, giving them the same spiel. Momo turned to Izuku, who was watching Shindo. I have made the comparison, Momo, he said, noting the similarities in their appearance. In spite of everything, you strive to become pro-heroes despite those hardships. It's wonderful. He flexed his hand while shining a charming smile. Hearts full of fortitude. That's what I believe, that's what every hero in the world should have. Shindo's charisma and charm was so strong it was practically mesmerizing. This guy's trying way too hard. But it's smart, I'll give him that. Izuku thought, seeing right through his better-looking doppelganger. This charming pretty boy's gonna steal our girls. Kaminari inwardly mopped. Shindo's eyes landed on Bakugo. Bakugo, it must have been hard for you with that kidnapping incident. Thank goodness one was on it. He extended a hand. You've got a strong will, don't you? Today I'm gonna do my best to learn from you. I really hope you don't mind. Bakugo swats his hand away. Stop pretending. What you say doesn't match the look in your eye. He kept a smile, but the kind and friendly look in Shindo's eyes shifted for a moment, something Izuku noticed. He actually caught that. I guess assholes know how to spot other assholes, and Bakugo is the furthest thing from fake nice. Hey man, don't be so rude, Kirishima exclaimed, calling out Bakugo. He rubbed his head sheepishly. Sorry about him, that's just how he is. Shindo gave the redhead a friendly look. It's fine. It proves how tough his heart is. A girl with blonde hair and spiky pigtails, blue eyes and sharp teeth happily approached Izuku, Todoroki and Momo. Todoroki, you were amazing in the sports festival. Can I have your autograph? She turned to Momo. Yayorozu, you gotta tell me how you train. A boy from Ketsubutsu with long black hair looked at her, almost disappointed. Seriously? Stop fangirling. Hey, get your costumes and head to orientation. There's no time to waste. Aizawa told the class as he walked towards the arena. Everyone headed for the arena to get changed. Jiro couldn't help but feel a little weird about their fame. It's weird, I always forget we're famous to other schools. Kaminai had a cheeky smile. Yeah, we're basically celebrities when it comes to hero course students. No pictures, please, he joked, throwing up peace signs. Hearing this, Ms. Joke was surprised. Wait, you didn't tell your kids, Eraser? He didn't answer her, and just kept walking. Izuku heard that as he kept walking with Momo. He had a good idea what that was about. He decided not to say anything about the fact that everyone here most likely knows their quirks, and may have trained to be able to specifically take them out. Some of them were nervous as it was. Be that as it may, he's helped all of them the best he can, and all he can do is support them. Matsue. In the shadows of the city, the hero killer was on the prowl. He had arrived in Shermaine yesterday, and knew exactly where he was heading. His target this time was unlikely to patrol. They were too busy looking good for the camera for that. As he hid within the shadows, making his way towards the agency, he really wanted to make a statement. He wanted society to know he was still alive and more of a threat than he was before. He had seen the interview one had done and knew that after this wouldn't take long for them to meet again. Come what may, he needed to do his work. Each false hero he cut down paved the way for a true hero to take their place. He would reclaim the word, hero, no matter what it took. All Might was gone, the only person he deemed worthy of killing him. Of all those he's come across, one is the only true hero in this society, and if he was going to die, as it stands, he'd be the only one allowed to do it. Chapter 31: Those Who Understand and Those with Conviction. Izuku sat in the stands behind Aizawa and Ms. Joke. He felt slightly awkward, feeling like a third wheel between Eraserhead and Ms. Joke, the latter of who was flirting with the former in her jokey way. She shot a glance at Izuku. "Hey kid, you look vaguely familiar to me, have we met?" Izuku made his All Might impression. Yes, we have." Ms. Joke burst into laughter. "You're that guy." She held her stomach as she laughed uncontrollably. Eraserhead crossed his arms, barely containing his irritation. These two were made for each other. All three of them looked down onto the field at the large box that contained the students. Eraser told Izuku when it unfolded the exam would begin. The students were being briefed on the first stage of the exam and everything was already set. As Izuku looked around the field, he was truly impressed by the various structures that simulated real-world environments. "This is amazing. All these landscapes are so realistic. It makes sense. The provisional exam is meant to simulate real-world situations. Regardless of what the students face today, it's something they'll have to overcome," Eraser explained. Ms. Joke brought her fist to her cheek. "Not only that, but this is a good way to show how the environment affects their strengths and weaknesses." She turned to the stern-looking Eraser hero. "I'm actually surprised you didn't warn your kids about the exam. The fact you still have 20 students and haven't expelled anyone says you actually like your class this time around." Izuku turned to Eraserhead, who didn't respond. "I mean, I get it. I've hung out with the class, and though I can't speak to previous years, this crop of first years is pretty impressive," he said, smiling. "Who are you again?" Ms. Joke asked, tilting her head. "Izuku Midoriya. My girlfriend's one of Eraserhead's students," he answered casually. The older woman gestured to the teen. "See, Eraser? This is what a loving, supportive boyfriend looks like. Please date me." "Shut up." The greenette burst into laughter, genuinely amused by his attitude. "You make it so easy, you know." The box unfolded, revealing hundreds of students in various costumes. All of them looked around as the announcer gave an exposition about the exam. They were all clearly shocked by the vast landscapes all around them that made up the training ground. Izuku and Eraser spotted Class A bundled together as the entire crowd dispersed. "So it begins," Izuku said. "You know, if you like your students, you should have told them about all this. The format of the exam may change every year, but one thing always remains the same." Izuku shot a glance at her, knowing full well where she was going with this. "So it's as I thought." On the field. "Everyone, let's try to stay together and work as a group," Momo insisted as they ran through the field together. "Don't tell me what to do, Ponytail!" Bakugo barked as he ran off by himself, quickly followed by Kirishima and Kaminari. No surprise there, Momo thought. Sensing someone else itching away from them, she saw Todoroki leaving the group. "You too, Todoroki? My quirk's not safe for being in a group like this," he stated as he broke off from the group. Shinso sighed. "I'll go back him up," he said before chasing after Todoroki. "That lasted as long as I expected it to. It's not wise for any of us to be alone, especially in the beginning." Momo quickly created a Sakabato, holding the sword firmly in her hand as she senses multiple prevences ahead of them. "Yamamo?" Jiro called out to her, noting the serious look on her face. "It would have been better if we all stayed together. What those 5 didn't realize is that we're coming in here at a disadvantage." "What do you mean?" Siro asked. We don't know the quirk of a single person here outside of our own class. It wouldn't be beyond the possibility that the other schools will deliberately target us." Ida understood what she was getting at. "You mean everyone knows our quirks because of the sports festival?" "Precisely. I had the feeling prior to the exam, and when I met Shindo it essentially confirmed my suspicions." She stopped running with the others following her lead. "Case in point," she said, noting the more than 100 students on the rocky area looking down at them like cats to cornered mice. In the stands, Ms. Joke held a hand to her cheek. "U.A is immediately crushed." Both Izuku and Eraserhead looked onto the field, either showing any sign of worry. "It makes sense," Izuku said, breaking the silence. "Honestly, it's probably for the best that they didn't know about that coming in." Joke looked at him. "Think about it, it's not like it would have changed anything. When they become pros, they'll face villains that will know their quirks. This is essentially throwing them into the deep end early, and you can only hold their hands so much." Eraser kept a neutral expression. "My thoughts exactly. Real heroes could turn this situation around. Either way, they'll have to overcome this at some point. Perhaps at U.A, we look further ahead than other schools. So in other words, experiencing the real deal as early on as this is the best and most helpful thing that can happen for them. It'll either make or break them," Izuku added. Shindo smiled maliciously. Any trace of his friendly demeanor from before was non-existent. Clutching a ball in his left hand, he stood alongside many other students ready to crush U.A, a typical part of the exam. "So Bakugo and Todoroki bailed? Oh well." He eyed Momo. "I saw you in the sports festival. You're fast on your feet and good with a sword." He cocked back his hand. "Let's see if you can dodge this." He hurled his ball right at Momo, with the others joining in, causing a rain of balls to rocket towards Class A. "Everyone, brace yourselves," Momo warned as she stepped forward, facing the barrage of balls. Raising her sword, she swung it in a circular motion. "Spiral Phoenix!" Momo called out as a large spiral air slash flew towards her enemies, knocking away most of the balls, hitting several of them and tearing through the rocky landscape. Many of the students were knocked back by her attack but still ready to fight. Everyone else had dodged or defended from the balls in their own ways. "Oh." He smiled confidently at seeing her coming. He had dodged her air slash but hadn't dropped his initial plan. The sounds of battle echoed across the arena in various landscapes. "So the initial plan is a wash. Nice try, Ketsubutsu," Izuku joked, noting how Class A defended from their initial assault. "But it looks like a lot of them think it's important to finish fast. Like they'll get top ranks or something. So they want to attack immediately." "Yes, but teamwork is the key. The wiser ones will cooperate and gather information together. But if they're seduced by the urge to win, they'll rush to get points and end up exposing themselves. Then it'll all be over," Eraser added. Ketsubutsu continued their assault on UA. They tried an underground assault only for it to be cancelled out by Jiro, while Ashido saved Mineta, who was their target. Shindo stood in the back, cracking his hands as if preparing for something. Izuku narrowed his eyes at him. "What's he planning? I wonder what his quirk is." "So many powers on display here. I'm so glad I came to watch this." Ms. Joke watched her students, thinking about their training and hard work. "At U.A you look further ahead than other schools? That's a pretty condescending thing to say, Eraser. Do you have any idea how many kids in the world want to be heroes? Strength of will is more important than going to a famous school or having renown. When you think you're the star and look down on others, you reveal your weaknesses. That's how you fail." Eraser had just kept his arms crossed, looking out at the exam. "That's not necessarily an inaccurate statement. But you can have an indomitable will and go to a famous school. And said school doesn't mean you look down on others. That's more of an individual thing. Just saying," Izuku said slyly. Ms. Joke looked at him, slightly annoyed by him one-upping her. Back on the field, Shindo smiled confidently. "Out of the way!" He dropped down, placing his hands on the ground. "Their defenses are too strong right now. I'll take care of that. Maximum force. Class A looked at him, on edge to what he had planned. His hands glowed with small domes of white energy. The ground began to rumble. Tremoring earth! He called out as the ground shattered, creating an earthquake that shook up the entire landscape. All of Class A was shocked by this display of power. With one move he essentially broke down and reshaped the entire area, which wasn't small. The ground exploded all around them as several of them were carried off by the seismic upheavals. Izuku went wide-eyed at the sudden destruction in the rocky landscape. Holy crap, that's Shindo's quirk! His quirk nerd came to the surface. Ms. Joke smiled confidently. Our Shindo is a special boy. Seems he's trying to separate Class A. Eraserhead deduced. Izuku looked at his fellow curly-haired boy, his quirk analytic skills on full display as he studied him. It looks that way. Plus, with a quirk like his, it's only natural to take advantage of being in a rocky landscape like that. I can feel the tremors from here. However, he looked at a certain girl in red in the midst of the destruction. Shindo smiled confidently at his work. We've got super moves too. You didn't think you were the only ones, did ya? Not at all. A feminine voice called out, causing everyone to look up. Seeing Momo above them, they all went on edge, especially Shindo, who couldn't move after unleashing such a strong attack. Momo created a second Sakabato, looking down at her enemies whose eyes were all on her. Most of the class was separated by Shindo, but if she took out many of them, it would allow several of them to pass once they regrouped. Momo griped her swords before violently spinning, creating a massive tornado. Kriati Tatsumaki! She called out as the wind roared, hammering the area and blowing away her enemies. In the eye of the storm, Momo raised her swords as she fell to the ground. With a powerful dual swing she cracked the ground, increasing the strength of the twister at its base and making it grow larger before making it explode in a powerful burst of wind. Many students were continuously beaten by the wind as the attack climbed higher into the sky. Izuku quickly stood up, his eyes shined as he watched this from the stands. Take him down, babe! Eraserhead was in disbelief, never seeing anything like this before. What exactly did Yaoyorozu just do? She just used one of our master's secret techniques. I had no idea she even knew about it, let alone be able to do it. The Kama Tatsumaki, or the sickle tornado, is a secret sword technique where the user spins to create a tornado. Where this move gets its name comes from the fact the winds of this attack are razor sharp, slicing anything caught up in it to pieces. He exclaimed excitedly. Now that I look at it, Momo's Tatsumaki relies more on force rather than cutting. Which makes sense considering she's using a reverse-edged sword, but she did so many things right. Just now, our master would be proud. Eraserhead looked at the twister that was wrecking the rocky landscape, once again in complete shock that something like this was possible through training alone. Ms. Joke looked at the scene, concerned for her students who were surely caught up in that. She knew about their plan to go after Udade, but she never expected this. They were looking so good a moment ago, and now they're being beaten by a tornado conjured by brute force. She swallowed her concerns. It wasn't over until it's over, but they were in their second year. They needed to get their provisional licenses. It would be a major setback if they couldn't get them this year, and it often turned into something most hero course students couldn't recover from. Several Shiketsu students spotted the massive tornado in the distance. Looks like Inace is getting to work, best we not fall behind, Mora stated as he and a group of his peers went on the attack. Inace stood on the roof of a building in the city landscape. He saw the tornado in the next area over and it got him excited. Incredible! So I'm not the only wind type here. He pumped his fist. I don't know who you are, but I am extremely moved by your passion, he exclaimed as he readied to compete. The wind roared as the tornado began to dissipate. As the wind stopped, it revealed Momo, arms outstretched, swords in hand, surrounded by many unconscious students. The rocky landscape was a wreck. The sounds of battle and other zones were the only discernible sounds as everyone was down. Unbeknownst to Momo, all of her dots were glowing blue, indicating she had passed the exam. Mera, in his tired state, stirred at seeing several people had failed the exam. Oh, it looks like some people have passed. His tired expression quickly became one of shock. Huh! 73 people were taken out by one person! Well, I'm awake now, and I think that will make the rest of you start passing soon. Momo looked down at her dots. I didn't expect that. She spread her senses to look for her classmates. She was next to Jiro, Azuri, and Shoji when she jumped after Shindo's attack. Tokoyami, Ida, Sato, Aoyama, Mineta, Siro, Yururika, Ashido, Koda, and Hagakure are nearby. I don't sense Jiro, Shoji, or Azuri. They may be in a whole new area. Shindo really split us up. She looked around and saw that several of the downed students, and their dot lit red with a few that didn't. I have to regroup with the others. Maybe some can still get points from those who aren't out. She thought as she disappeared in a flash to regroup with her class and help them pass. She was the class rep, and even though she passed, there was no rule that said she couldn't help the others. In the stands, Izuku smiled proudly. While I understand the reasoning, it wasn't a good idea to target Udate this year. Momo just took out over 70 students by herself, I'm pretty sure by complete accident. With an attack that big, if she didn't eliminate a handful of opponents, it would have been extremely disappointing. Eraserhead added with crossed arms. Ms. Joke stayed silent, worried for her students as she couldn't spot a single one of them. Hopefully they weren't in that number that were eliminated. Momo quickly rounded the classmates closest to her, namely Tokoyami, Ida, Aoyama, and Mineta. They each tagged someone who wasn't already out, with each of them passing. Momo sent them to the anteroom as she went to continue helping the others. Sensing a disturbance, she looked towards the city landscape and saw hundreds of balls in the air, seemingly being manipulated by currents of air. Focusing her vision, she saw whom she could only assume was Yorashi creating a small vortex to suck up many balls into it. She couldn't hear him, but she saw him throw his hand down with all the balls rocketing to the ground. A moment later, she heard Mera exclaim that he took out over 100 students by himself just now, confirming he was as strong as Mr. Aizawa said. She had to move and help her class. Hopefully he didn't get any of them. Man, I'm so glad I came to watch this, Izuku exclaimed as he watched the constant fighting. It seems like Yayorozu is helping the others pass even though she already has. Well, she is the class rep after all. She just helped 4 of them, and I'm sure she wants to help them all pass. Plus, there's no rule that says she can help them even though she's passed. Eraserhead took in his words. He continued to watch the exam with stern eyes, hoping each of them passed. As the exam continued, Momo went on to help each of her classmates pass the exam. Siro and Yururika put their heads together to trap some enemies, passing on their own while she found Jiro, Azuri, and Shoji just as they walked into a trap laid by CI Academy. Momo was able to outthink their leader, Psycho Intelli, and allow her classmates to pass. She decided to wrap it up since everyone that was in her initial group had passed. She didn't know where Todoroki, Bakugo, Kirishima, Shinso, and Kaminari were, but she had to trust that they would be okay. Entering the anteroom, she got her markers removed and found her classmates. She also noted how they had set up a smorgasbord of food to keep them fed and energized for the test. She was relieved when she saw Todoroki and Shinso were already there, and not too long after Bakugo, Kirishima, and Kaminari came in. She was even more impressed when she heard about how the exam went for them. Todoroki and Shinso worked together to defeat Seijin High, while Bakugo, Kirishima, and Kaminari took on Seiji Shishikura, a one-man powerhouse from Shiketsu High. He had a strange meat quirk, and would have taken out all 3 of them had they not been together. Todoroki stood with his class when he noticed the guy from Shiketsu was eyeing him. It was almost time for the first part of exam to end and all of Class A had passed, but the look on the seemingly cheerful guy was unsettling. Ms. Joke stood up as she excitedly pointed at the anteroom, proud of the people she saw entering. Those last ones to pass were my students, she cheered. And everyone got what they wanted, Izuku joked. All of class has still passed first though. It's not a competition, Midoriya. The greenette smirked. Not for us maybe. Everyone's passed and there's still 5 minutes left in the exam. Good job everyone, but stay focused. The real challenge of the exam comes next. Eraserhead kept his arms crossed with a stern look, ignoring the back and forth between Midoriya and Joke. You know what? For all your insight, how come you're not on the field, Midoriya? She asked, slightly annoyed with the Greenette comments. They've gone back and forth, and though she's enjoyed teasing Eraser, Izuku's sly comments have been slightly annoying, especially given he's not in the hero course. Izuku smiled nonchalantly. I would have loved to be on the field getting my provisional license today. Unfortunately, neither U.A or Ketsubutsu would let me walk in the door. Joke swallowed her sly retort. Why, what's your quirk? Don't have one. These words shocked her. But my spirit is indomitable. He shrugged with a smile. However, you can't tell that from looking at me, only whether or not I have a quirk to show off. Sorry, she said, almost sounding awkward as she truly had no response or defense of that. She saw once interview and it really made her think about a lot of things. Eraserhead shot a quick glance at Izuku. He would never let them live that down. Matsue. The snake hero, Uwabami, sits in her office. She had received several modeling gigs and was figuring out a schedule for them. She's been booked solid with back-to-back photo shoots, TV appearances, and several commercials. She's hardly had time to patrol. She's been put in a bit of an awkward spot recently, largely because of one. His interview has really called out heroes, especially those who are celebrity-based heroes. She's had to answer several questions about this, and it's not just her, some calling her out for doing more modeling and media work than actual hero work. Which was true, but that didn't mean she'd hesitate to help those in danger. As she thought about all this, she suddenly tensed up when her snakes went on edge. They sensed someone unfamiliar had entered the agency. She stood up from her desk, peeping towards the exit. She had no idea who this person was, but her snakes were informing her of the danger they proposed. She was on edge, unprepared for this situation. It wasn't uncommon for villains to try and ambush heroes at their agencies, but she was more a rescue hero, so villains had no real reason to target her. She checked her surroundings. Fighting was the only option here, but it needed to be on her terms. Her office wasn't a good place for a fight to break out, and she could sense the moment she stepped outside her office door she'd be at a disadvantage. She needed to call for backup, but any other agency in the area would take at least 10 minutes to get here. Her snakes were becoming feisty, telling her this was definitely a life or death situation. She quickly sent out an emergency alert along with her location on her phone before putting it down. The person outside the office still hadn't made a move. She was still tense. If it had not been for her snakes, she'd never have noticed them. You may as well come on out. I know you're out there, she said sternly, swallowing her unease. Her snakes slithered, telling her the intruder was making a move. She then saw the flash of figure, and before she knew it, he was in her face. The intruder had a V-shaped face. He had a rough, intimidating look. His eyes were red with messy black hair, and he was muscular with a hunch, fully armed with a sword on his back and multiple blades. Uwabami's eyes widened, fear prevalent in her eyes. She'd seen many photos of this man, getting familiar with his face after seeing one's defeat of him. She's heard of him multiple times, and his mere presence here meant one thing. Hero killer Stain, she said through barely composed breaths. He gave her a murderous glare, his default expression. If you know who I am, then you know why I've come. I knew someone was here with malicious intent, but I never suspected it would be you. Starting today, I continue my work. You're the first of many more false heroes that need to be culled, he said seriously, shoot a glance at her phone. You won't get away with this. More pros and police are on their way. You won't be able to handle all of them. Just turn yourself in. The moment these words were uttered, Stain quickly grabbed her phone and crushes it between his hands, cutting off her distress signal and truly leaving her at his mercy. You truly are a fool. Had you been a true hero, this wouldn't be happening. Have no fear, Faker. Your death will bring about a better world. The heroine grit her teeth. What gives you the right to decide what makes someone a hero? My conviction to reclaim that word, that's what. A wave of killing intent filled the room, paralyzing the hero with fear at his intense bloodlust. Fakers like you, who rather smile for the media than help someone. Spending more time getting cute for the camera than patrolling. A hero so obsessed with the media she only recruits disillusioned students based solely on their looks. He growled as his words were filled with utter malice. He grabbed the word on his back. That's why you need to go. The snake hero swallowed her fear and lunged at him but was quickly slashed by Stain, unsheathing his katana from his back faster than she could blink. Stain cut her diagonally across the chest, slitting her dress and making a large gash between her breasts, her right now being completely exposed. She fell back from the hit, looking down and horrified at her current state. The pain and shame she felt was secondary to the fear of seeing so much crimson oozing from her chest. She's never had a serious injury in her career, mainly because she wasn't a fighter. As she looked up at her soon-to-be killer, who kept a firm grip on his sword that was dripping with her crimson life, the true nature of this situation fully sank in. She was about to die. There was nothing she could do about it. Fear, anger, and shame hit her like a bus. She only hoped she wouldn't take these memories into her next life, and even though it would be too late for her, she hoped that someone would stop this monster. Back at the exam. The first half of the exam ended. All the students were resting, eating or socializing between each other. Uwabami noticed Ketsubutsu come in, most of them still beaten up from what Momo did to them. Luckily she didn't eliminate any of them and they were thankful to pass by the skin of their teeth. It seems Ketsubutsu passed, Ida noted as he saw the group. It appears so, Momo added, as she made a plate of pork buns. The students stood around, talking to each other as the exam ended. What do you mean Shishikura didn't pass? Yorashi exclaimed at Mora. Calm down. It's because he ran ahead of us to fight on his own, like you did. Inasa relented and calmed down a bit from these words. The hairy boy turned to his brunette classmate. I'm a little surprised at you. Trying to do the same thing. You should set a better example for the first year's Kami. Ah, come on, Mora, I totally crushed it, didn't I? Mora just sighed at this response. It was time to begin the second half of the exam. Everyone turned their attention to the monitor showing the test arena. Everyone was surprised when explosions went off across every landscape, turning each of them into disaster zones. They explained that the next phase of the exam was to save the bystanders who are trapped. What are bystanders again? Kaminari and Mineta asked in unison. Hagakure raised a finger. Bystanders. Remember we learned about them in class, they're people at a disaster scene. It can also simply refer to innocent civilians on the street, Momo added, her arms crossed under her ample breasts. Show us how you'll conduct successful rescue procedures once you receive your provisional licenses. Treat this as the real thing, Mera said, finishing his explanation and giving them time to prepare for the exam. Momo watched the monitor showing the views of several disaster zones, and couldn't help but notice the similarities to the most recent of devastating events. Izuku narrowed his eyes as he looked at the new terrain. He noticed the hired actors playing injured people and liked the authentic touch. But the destruction reminded him of several cases he's dealt with in the past few months. Vaccine Man's attack, the storm, the Kamino and Hosa incidents, the situations looked very similar in regards to the destruction. They really are preparing them for the real world. Izuku thought out loud with Eraserhead silently agreeing. Rescuing, Momo thought as Shoji noted the people in said zones. Mera explained how actors from HUC are there to make the test more real as they're playing injured civilians. I've noticed the similarities between this and other incidents in the past few months. Ida stepped beside her. So have I. And in each of these incidents there were a lot of casualties. Momo's cat-like eyes were serious as she thought of the man who resolved the incidents. Not this time. Kirishima was munching on a slice of bread, standing next to Bakugo, when he spotted the group from Shiketsu approaching them. Hey, it's Shiketsu. The blonde, who wasn't paying attention, turned as the group faced them. A tall boy covered in light brown hair seemed to be the leader. His one exposed eye locked onto the shorter ash blonde. Bakugo? What? I hear you had an encounter with my classmate Shishikura, the one with the flesh-molding power? So much hair, Kirishima thought. Bakugo looked the other teen in the eye. Yeah, I took him out. I thought so. I'm guessing he may have acted rudely or offended you. He has a tendency to try and push his own values onto others. You're pretty famous, so he probably couldn't help it in your case. I apologize for him. I hope to build a good relationship between our schools. So he wants to be friends? Cool, Ashido commented. Ojiro chuckled. The way they were fighting, it sure didn't seem like it. Todoroki looked at the back of Yorashi. A good relationship, he thought, noting the look he's been giving him. That's all. Good luck in the exam, Mora said before he, Inasa and Kami walked away. Hey, you with the collar? Todoroki called out to the passing-by taller boy. Inasa turned around, giving him the same disapproving look from before. Did I offend you in some way? Oh, I'm sorry, did I hurt your feelings? Well, son of Endeavor, I can't help but hate the both of you. You've changed a bit since we last met, but you still have your father's eyes, he said, completely serious. These words hit Todoroki a bit. Something the matter, Yorashi? Mora asked. Inasa's demeanor completely shifted. No, not a thing, sir. His upbeat attitude back on the surface. Momo saw that entire interaction and was about to speak with Todoroki when the bell rang, signaling the beginning of the exam. We're starting, Ajui stated as the walls of the room unfolded. Class A ran together looking for injured. You're going off on your own again? Ashido asked Bako, who was edging from the group. Why are you damn extras always following me? 'Cause we wanna, Kirishima and Kaminari said in unison. Izuku watched the exam unfold from the stands. He also noted how 100 people in black suits were spread across the stands, watching the exam with keen eyes. So rescue's the name of the game. Do the students know how they're going to be graded this round? Not sure, but it's got something to do with these black suits spread across the stands, Eraserhead answered. Yeah, got that, but I'm looking at this more laterally. This test looks way too real for it to be a simple rescue exercise. Eraserhead gave him a sharp look, getting an idea of what he meant. Let's head to the urban areas and look for any injured, Momo said as the class went on their way. Right. Everyone agreed. Momo spread her senses and felt several people around her. She headed toward the fist one she felt. Over here. She took off with the class following. Help me, please! My grandpa's crushed, and I think he's hurt. A small boy with brown hair wearing a blue cap with a bloody forehead exclaimed. Momo was the first to reach him. Don't worry, you're safe now. We're going to find you, Grandpa. She turned to the class. I'll take this boy to the aid station myself. The rest of you fan out and look for others who may be injured. They all nodded, with many of the grouping up and looking for people. Momo got on the boy's level. She gave him a warm, beautiful, welcoming smile. Hi, I'm Kriati. What's your name? The boy kept a sad face. Icky. It's nice to meet you, Icky. It'll all be okay. She quickly made a cotton gauze and quickly whipped the blood sliding from his forehead. She picked him up. Let's go. Thank you, Angel, he said, being happy at being helped by such a pretty girl. Everyone is really getting into what this stage is about, Izuku said. True, and everyone's willingness to work with others, even those from other schools, is what truly stands out to me, Eraserhead added. Granted, this is pretty time-consuming. Something like this should be carried out as smoothly and efficiently as possible. Everyone's trying to stand out. Only those who truly understand the situation can look past that and just be a hero. Moments like this are where your true colors shine and show how dependable you are or not, Izuku said with a smirk as he continued to watch the exam unfold. Bakugo, Kirishima, and Kaminari arrived at the rocky landscape. Please help. I can't feel my arm. They spotted two people pleading for help. Shut up. Grow up, pair weaklings, Bakugo roared. Both the people as well as his classmates were shocked by this. What the heck, Bakugo? Kirishima exclaimed. The blonde just turned his head, annoyed. We can't just leave them down here, Kaminari stated as he jumped down to where they were to help. His words and attitude were totally inappropriate, minus points, one of the HUC members said, causing Bakugo to give them a murderous glare. What the hell did you say? He growled, ready to get violent and scaring the actors. The students were moving across the disaster areas helping people who were injured. Some were doing good, some were doing bad, but everyone was trying to help and quickly correct any mistakes they made. Momo dropped the boy off at the aid station and went back to help others. She was able to lead Jiro and Uraraka to save multiple people and get them to the aid station. Most of Class A had broken off, and for the most part they were doing good, each of them trying to make their best judgment. As she was about to head back, she sensed a disturbance before there was an explosion. And from the hole created out walked Gang Orca and his sidekicks. Everyone was surprised to see them playing the villains. Tell me, wannabe heroes, can you fight and protect people at the same time? How will you react? Will you run, protect, or fight? What would a hero do? These words caused everyone to get a full grasp of the new situation. Izuku watched these new developments. They expect them to fight and rescue at the same time? Against Gang Orca and his sidekicks no less. Eraserhead narrowed his eyes. Even for a pro this would be difficult. I'd say they're going a bit too far. I don't know. Eraser turned to the Greenette. The important thing is to save and protect the people. I'm sure some of them can keep them busy long enough to do that before taking care of them. Izuku watched the whale man and his goons approach the aid station. How will you respond, Class A? Gang Orca's sidekicks began to mob them. Momo made a pair of electric Eskrima sticks. Everyone, evacuate the aid station and get everyone to safety. I've got this. You'd be better suited for that, Shindo exclaimed as he bolted by her. He put his hands on the ground. I'll start hammering at the henchmen at 1-second intervals. He activated his quirk and the ground in front of him shattered, hurting the acting villains. He smiled confidently. How's that? His accomplishment was short-lived, as in an instant Gang Orca was in his face, releasing a sonic wave at point-blank range. Shindo dropped to the ground as his body became paralyzed. Ms. Jo quickly stood up after seeing this. Oh damn, he's going all out. Izuku narrowed his eyes. Yes, he is. That one looked like it hurt. Get up, Shindo. Gang Orca made his way towards the injured when he suddenly turned to counter a wave of ice with his sound wave. It was Todoroki, standing his ground against the top hero. Your attack is too weak, the pro mocked. I'm gonna blow you evildoers away, Yorashi declared as he unleashed a massive blast of wind onto the henchmen, blowing away everyone except Gang Orca. As this was happening, everyone was helping to evacuate the aid station. Seeing that most of the people were in the hands of others, Momo took off to save the remaining people in the disaster area. Izuku crossed his fingers, happy with this development. Nice timing, Yorashi. They're prioritizing the safety of the aid station and its people, which is the cornerstone of any rescue operation. Two long-range fighters, he and Todoroki, are best suited to hold back Gang Orca. Now they just have to work together to hold him off long enough to save everyone else, and they pass. Both elemental quirk users shot discontent looks at each other. Of course you'd be here too, Yorashi stated, annoyed. Todoroki turned away from him. That's my line. He outstretched a hand as Yorashi gathered wind. They both fired at Gang Orca, with the attacks canceling each other out and missing the whale. The hell are they aiming? Izuku along with several others thought. Why did you use your fire? The heat makes the air rise up, Yorashi complained. Because he's a whale and he didn't fall to my ice. My fire would be more effective against him. He turned to him. Here's an idea. Instead of hating and working against me, How about you work with me? He shifted his body to dodge a blast of liquid cement. That was close. Damn, missed him. Yorashi continued to glare at him. Why would I help you? Because you want to be a hero, right? Todoroki glared at him. Newsflash, you couldn't possibly hate my old man more than I do. You don't live with him, so be thankful. He put up an ice wall to block multiple blasts of liquid cement, and Yorashi flew to dodge the shots fired at him. Inasa grit his teeth, remembering the looking Todoroki's eyes the first time they met, how it was just like Endeavor's. You and your father are the only heroes I can't accept. He raised his hand. You don't deserve the title, understand? Now move! He threw his hand, firing a blast of wind. Todoroki decided to forget him. Focus! He thought as he quickly fired a jet of fire at Gang Orca. Once again the attacks hit and threw each other off. Todoroki's fire flew towards the downed Shindo, who was still unable to move for Gang Orca's attack. The vibration teen looked in horror at the wave of flames that was rocketing towards him. Todoroki noticed his mistake. No! He'll be incinerated! He thought as Shindo was engulfed by the flames before they crashed into the walls of the stadium in a burst of fire. Everything slowed down as the realization of what just happened entered the minds of those who saw it. Someone had just died. In the midst of this haze, one voice tore through the silence. Damn it! What the hell do you two think you're doing? Everyone followed the sound of the voice to spot one, high in the air carrying an unharmed Shindo. All eyes widened when they fell on the independent hero, genuinely shocked he was here. A hero teacher stroked his chin. When did he get here? Better yet, where did he come from? But those two, kinda hard to believe they're from top schools. It wouldn't surprise me if they ended up failing. Not like I'd blame the judges. A female hero added. Ms. Joke leaned on the chair in front of her, genuinely worried her student almost died. After seeing he had been saved by one, she let out a sigh of relief. That guy's got great timing. Eraser kept his arms crossed, casting a quick glance behind him and seeing Izuku was gone. Thankfully either he or Joke had noticed. Mera typed something into his computer. Todoroki eyed one who landed carrying Shindo. How does he always do that? He thought. He didn't have time to register it long when he was hit by a shot of liquid cement in his right shoulder. Got him! One of the henchmen cheered. Good luck moving when that hardens. First I'll take out the wind user, Gang Orca stated before firing a sonic wave and Yorashi that paralyzed him, unallowing him to use his quirk and fall out of the sky. Todoroki saw this. You okay? His throat was grabbed by the whale. I'd suggest worrying about yourself, you reap what you sow. A sonic wave was fired point blank in his face, making him immobile. Go, he ordered his men. The henchmen took off to destroy the aid station and round up the civilians. One stood between them with Shindo, feeling out of place. Okay guy, this is still a test. I can't really be your front line, so now's a good time to get up, he said to Shindo. Shindo grit his teeth, pushing past the pain. Move one. The curly-haired hero reached forward, his hands touching the ground and shattering the ground, fending off the enemies. Nice, and here I thought you couldn't move because of his blast. Well, my extremities are pretty numb, but I'll bounce back. Sound waves aren't that bad, not too different from my vibrations. It may be the first time I've been thankful for that recall. Anyway, I was trying to get a surprise attack on that whale. His face became angrier. And those 2 first years ruined it. You're intense, one commented at the angry Shindo. I've tripped the henchman. I appreciate the save, but I've got this one. The hero smiled. Good luck. He disappeared in a flash of speed, appearing in his seat out of costume. Eraser had shot him a silent glance when he saw he was back. Thankfully Ms. Joke didn't notice. The students had finished evacuating the injured and many came back to fight the villains. Todoroki and Yorashi combined their power to trap Gang Orca in a tornado of fire. But it wasn't enough as he used a water bottle to keep him hydrated. Momo dashed across the battlefield, electric eskrima sticks in hand as she took down henchmen one after another. Gang Orca was free from the fire and wet from the water he poured on himself. Momo faced the whale hero, getting around his guard and shoving the taser end of her right stick into his stomach. Electricity coursed through his body as the alarm rang, signaling the end of the exam and that everyone had been saved. Kirishima looked out into the distance. "Wait, we were the last ones?" he asked while carrying on of the injured people along with Kaminari while Bakugo angrily strutted. Izuku leaned back. "And that ends the exam? How do you think everyone did?" "Most of them were adequate, but a few still have a lot to learn. Todoroki's getting over his personal problems. But Bakugo remains a fool as always," Izuku said, smiling as he shook his head. "Aside from that, I don't see too many problems with anyone else. This test showed who knows what's important and who doesn't." Eraserhead merely sighed, knowing he was right. After the students got dressed, the results of the exam were ready. Mera gave some exposition about the exam as well as the means of passing. When the results were revealed, most of the students were ecstatic by the results. The only person in Class A to fail was Bakugo, much to his anger. However, he was given a chance to redeem himself through a 3-month special course. The day ended and the students were given their provisional licenses. Class 1A stood outside the arena waiting for the bus. Izuku stood with Eraserhead while the students received their licenses. The bus for Ketsubustu arrived and Ms. Joke approached the hero. "Hey Eraser, since we've reconnected, how about we meet up for joint training sometime?" "That sounds like it could be beneficial," he answered warmly instead of giving a stern, dry remark. Izuku spotted Momo exiting the arena with Uraraka. She had the brightest smile on her face as she looked at her license. "I'm so proud of you, love!" he exclaimed as he grabbed her by the waist, lifted her up and spun her like a princess. Putting her down, he looked her in the eyes. "You're halfway to becoming a pro." "I know. I'm so thankful, Izuku. I've had so much help to come this far. It feels like all of it was truly worth it," she said, smiling while looking at her license. Izuku got behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, looking at her license over her shoulder. "The everything hero, Creati. It won't take long before that name is on the lips of everyone." She smiled warmly. "This is just my first step, Izuku." Izuku rested his head on her left shoulder. "I totally get it." Hey! Hey! Inasa called out as he approached Yue. "It's that Shiketsu guy," Azuri stated. He kept moving as he went by them. "Todoroki, I'm happy you passed. I'll do my best at the special course. But honestly, nothing has changed. I still don't like you. See ya." He went back to his group. "Well, that was nice of him," Kirishima said. "I hope he makes the best of it," Todoroki stated. Eraserhead faced his class. "Alright you lot, the bus is here, time to head home." All of Class 1A headed towards the bus. Izuku and Momo held hands, not wanting to depart. Izuku gave her a look and she decided to go for it. They both approached Mr. Aizawa. "Mr. Aizawa, is it okay if Izuku comes back to celebrate with us?" The Erasure hero gave the teens a blank look. He closed his eyes. "Fine. Midoriya, I expect you off campus no later than 8 o'clock. Izuku saluted. "Yes, sir." Everyone loaded up onto the bus. Everyone was showing each other their provisional licenses, with everyone commenting on their photos. Izuku was sitting next to Momo and they both were looking at Ashido's. "Sweet pick, Ashido." "Yes, very bubbly," Momo said as she handed it back to her. "So I heard you were all scored on a points system. Who got the highest?" Jiro played with her earphone jacks. "Come on, you really have to ask, Midoriya?" "Probably not, but I wanted to anyway." He shot a glance at his girlfriend, who was looking dignified, proud of her score of 95. He looked at Todoroki. "Yo, Todoroki? What score did you get? I saw things got a little heated for you." The heterochromatic eyed him. "I ended up with 58, I barely made it." That situation with the Shiketsu guy almost cost me the entire exam. Well, at least you did better than Bakugo. I really wanted all of us to pass too, Ashido said. The blonde grit his teeth. Shut it, Pinky! Why did you fail anyway? I was kinda expecting Todoroki too. But if even he can pass with the mistakes he made, then what did you do that you couldn't? Kaminari smiled at Izuku. Bakugo didn't choose his words carefully. Oh, let me guess, you came across some people that were injured and he was like, grow a pair. Save yourself, losers. Kaminari laughed at this. That's basically word for word how it went down. Of course it is. Bakugo growled. Shut the hell up, Deku! Don't be mad at me because you don't know how to be a good hero. Bakugo grit his teeth with anger. This is by far the most embarrassing, shameful, and humiliating moment of his life. Rhetorical question, but do you think All Might would tell someone to save themselves or mock them for being weak or injured? The whole bus went silent as all eyes fell on the ash blonde. His eyes were a mix of shock and anger. He had fallen behind all of these extras and now had to catch up to them. He saw the results of the exam. He scored 43. He failed largely because of what he said to those stupid actors and didn't fight anyone, nor did he save anyone. All of that's what killed him the most. Now everyone around him has their license while he's playing catch-up. He's failed over and over again since he got to U.A. This is something that was supposed to go right. He never felt more inferior than he does right now. He hated to think that he may be the only person here who might not have what it takes to be a hero. With his quirk, it should have been easy. If these weaklings can pass where he fails, what does that make him? The high school legacy he's building is turning into absolute shit, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. Shut your damn mouth, nerd, he said with venom, trying and failing to defend his pride. I rest my case. Aizawa noted the tension. He's right, Bakugo. All eyes fell on the teacher. The outcome of today is the result of each and every one of your individual decisions during the exam. I said it before. Attitude determines your altitude. Think back on the mistakes you made and realize why you failed. You've got a second chance with the special course. Don't make that a waste of time. Bakugo turned his head, done with all of this. The pro's eyes landed on the dual-haired teen. Todoroki? The icy hot teen looked him in the eyes. You got lucky. Remember what's important and get to the root of things that can set you back. His expression was solemn. Yes, sir. The bus was quiet for a moment before everyone started conversing again. Izuku leaned over the seat behind them. Hey Jiro, when are we going to make that music together? The long earlobe girl blushed lightly as she played with her earlobe. We can record something when we get to the dorm. I have instruments. I figured. He sat back down and turned to Momo. Speaking of which, I still haven't seen your dorm room. I gotta see how your bed could possibly fit in there, he said playfully. I honestly didn't expect the rooms to be so small. Kaminari perked up. They're not small, Yamamoto. They're just the average sized rooms for us poor people, he said jokingly. Izuku smiled playfully as he wagged a finger at the electric blonde. Tell her, Kaminari. Is it really that opulent? Momo genuinely asked with a cute, bashful blush. Izuku wrapped his arm around her and brought her head to his chest. A little bit. Heights Alliance Class 1A Dormitory. Izuku left his shoes at the front door. He then went on to explore the dorm with Momo and some of the other girls. He had been here several times as one, but this was the first time Izuku's been here, and his acting was on full display, showing interest in everything. Several of the girls showed him their rooms. Jiro's room quickly became lively when they both recorded a song Izuku wrote called Heroes. He surprised everyone with how good his guitar skills and singing voice were. The sun had set and it was dark outside. Izuku joined them for dinner, and after which everyone was hanging out in the common area. Izuku was sitting on one of the couches with Momo in his lap, cuddling her as everyone mingled. So we're back to normal classes tomorrow, right? Jiro asked. I suppose there's no rest for heroes. Momo answered. Sato stretched his back. Man, I need a vacation. Izuku moaned, snuggling into Momo's shoulder. Ah man, speaking of vacation, I totally forgot to have that beach day. Ashido, who was sitting next to them, was surprised by this. What? You said you'd do that when we were at camp. What were you doing this whole time, Midori? I had a bunch of entanglements, okay. Momo giggled as she turned to look at him. Entanglements? Izuku met her eyes with a charming smile. Yes, Momo, entanglements. Ashido leaned back. This summer went by too fast. Maybe, but a lot's happened. I will not forget this summer for the rest of my life, Tokoemi said in a cool tone with his arms crossed. Same here, Ojiro agreed. So now that most of you have your provisional licenses, I'm pretty sure that allows you to work with Pro's work study, I believe it's called. Yururuka and Ajiri were petting Koda's rabbit when they heard this. That's the first time I'm hearing about that, Ajiri said. Izuku turned to her. Honestly, what did you think your provisional licenses were for? You can't just stay in school, you have to get in the field. You know, actually gain experience instead of just learning about the job and how to use your quirk. Everyone that heard him took in his words. You know a great deal for someone not in the hero course, Midoriya? Tokoemi stated. Nothing wrong with being knowledgeable, Tokoemi. Plus I've bumped into several students who work with pros, so I just figured it was the next logical step for you all. Uraraka registered his words. We should ask Mr. Aizawa about that. Izuku checked his phone and noted he had a little over an hour before he had to leave. He lightly groaned as he held Momo. 1 hour left. That's all you have left? Momo asked. Yep. Eraserhead was kind enough to give me this, so I won't take advantage of it. Well, in that case. Momo got up, taking his hand into hers. Come. She gave him a knowing look before she led him out of the common room towards the elevator. Jiro whispered towards her pink-skinned classmate. Are they about to dash? Yep. Ashido answered before she could finish. Jiro went beet red. Ashido suddenly smiled mischievously as she watched the pair leave. She has far from forgotten what Midoriya is packing in his pants. She may have only been able to see the outline of it through his swimming trunks, but still. Momo's room. The two teens entered the Creation Girls' dorm room, and naturally there was little space given the giant bed. He's seen it before, and it was so Momo. She had various art paintings on the walls, and though the bed took up most of the space, she was surprisingly able to fit a bookcase full of books. Momo went to check something on her laptop that was on her desk. Izuku jumped onto the huge bed set, stomach first. This bed was the epitome of soft and comfortable. It would be the only true friend of anyone coming home from a long, hard-working day. He buried his face into one of her large pillows. Momo finished with her computer and, after letting her hair down, climbed onto the bed. She got on top of him. She lightly massaged his back, making him even more comfortable. She then laid on him, her soft chest pressing against his back. They stayed like this for a moment. She could tell Izuku was relaxed and very comfortable. Hey Momo? Yes, beloved. Say I, accidentally, fell asleep in here. Do you think Eraserhead would hold it against me? Momo smiled gently. Is that a rhetorical question? It could be considered one. I mean, I'm really comfortable right now. Stuck in the middle of two forms of heavenly softness, he said, noting both the bed under him and her boobs on top of him. You're so silly, Izuku. The greenette closed his eyes with a content smile. I just might be. He took a breath. You know, I'm really proud of you today. The black-haired girl was happy yet surprised. Where did that come from? Just being honest. I never had any doubts you'd pass the exam. I'm just glad I was there to see it. He smiled mischievously. Not only that, I got to see the Creati Tatsumaki, he said dramatically, making Momo blush and push his head down. Don't say it like that. That was my first time using it, you know. I noticed. But it looked good. You put your own spin on what's actually a lethal attack. Sensei showed me the basics, but thanks to some advice from one when he helped us train, I was finally able to figure it out. Well, that's good. I'm sure he'd be proud to know most of you passed. I'm sure he is, she said knowingly. About what you said a moment ago, you know as well as I do if Mr. Aizawa found out you spent the night, let alone in my room, you'd probably be banned from the dorms if not UA. And that would be bad. I'm already gonna have to go through hoops to spend time with you thanks to this dorm system. He rested his head. This next semester's going to be complicated. He lightly groaned, not liking certain aspects of Momo's new living situation. It'll be fine, Izuku. We'll see each other every weekend and I can always get permission to go on dates. I know. It's just that the inconveniences are a bit annoying. His phone started ringing. Reaching in his pocket, he saw that it was Rumi. Momo got off of him as he rolled over on his back to answer it. She sat up across his crotch when he answered. Hey Bad Bunny, what's up? Nothing much, kid. I'm just wondering if you're doing anything tomorrow? Besides going back to school, I was just going to patrol. Why, you want to team up? Did I say that? I just noted you never went on patrol today, so I figured you were planning for something. Oh, Intech and I are planning something. We're going to start investigating this guy soon. But I took the day off because Momo had her provisional license exam today. Rumi was surprised by this. Oh yeah, it is that time of year. The exam is usually for second years though. Did she pass? Of course she did. If there was a ranking, she probably got the highest scores. Only one of her classmates failed, which is saying a lot. Well, tell the Red Creator I said congrats. I will. He turned to Momo. Rumi said congrats? Tell her I said thank you. Izuku put the phone back to his ear. She said thank you? No problem. So is there anything else you wanted to ask me about? Ryukyu's looking for heroes to team up on a case. I said I'd get back to her after hearing your thoughts after I recommended you. You recommended me to Ryukyu? I didn't know she recovered. He looked at Momo, who was cutely pouting. Is that a problem? Not sure what the case is, but the fact she's asking for help means she is not back in top form. I get it. The case may be tough and doesn't want to overwork her sidekicks if she can't pull her weight. I'm not against it. I'm just surprised you'd entertain a call to team up. Momo grabbed her shirt, uplifting and removing it, revealing her luscious breasts in a light blue, floral lace bra. He was so mesmerized he nearly forgot he was on the phone. Momo gave him a seductive smile as she started massaging his crotch. That's why I called you. I'm not doing this if you're not, Rumi stated. Izuku chuckled. So you'll only do a team-up if I'm involved? You must really like me, he playfully teased her. Rumi blushed on the other side of the phone. She couldn't describe it, but he brings out a side to her she's beginning to question. It wasn't unpleasant, just different from what she's used to from guys. Don't flatter yourself. You being there would just make it more bearable. Is that so? Alright, shoot me Ryukyu's number and I'll give her my response, he said calmly, even as his rock-hard cock threatened to tear through his shorts. Momo unhooked her bra and tossed it to the side. Izuku's eyes locked on her womanly gifts that seemed slightly bigger since he last saw them. The look in her eyes was calm yet sensual. This was going to be fun. I got you. She paused for a moment. By the way, I saw your interview with the fox chick. Way to bear it all out in the open. Momo grabbed his shorts, removing them and his underwear in one go. His eager manhood sprung forth, ready for the busted beauty. Why yeah, I just needed to speak my truth. His stutter came from Momo gently gripping his length and began fervorously licking him. Momo stroked him as she drenched his cock in her clear saliva, once again showing her improvement. Fujioka did good. Grr. And was great to talk to. Momo's improved oral pleasure barely had him keeping it together. Well, you did that. Rumi heard a strange sound on the other end of the phone. She also noted his tone a moment ago. Are you alright? The sound of sucking filled the room as Momo's head bobbed up and down 6 inches of his long, thick shaft. She stroked the rest of him with her right as her free left playfully massaged his large cum-filled balls. Izuku grit his teeth. "I'm fine. Just resting." He didn't sound assuring as Momo swallowed more of him. Her sensual eyes met his amazed emeralds as her lips pressed tighter on him, while she went back and forth on 9 inches, most of him in her throat. Rumi had a skeptical look. "Resting, huh?" Rumi knew the sounds she was hearing and she knew how he sounded. "Sounds like your girl is really working you." "I don't know what you're talking about." Izuku squealed through gritted teeth as Momo slurped him, her onyx eyes looking at him hungrily, the shade of red across her beautiful face showing not just what she wanted but the effort she was putting in. "Well, tell her not to forget your balls, I know how much you like that," Rumi said slyly. "Rumi!" He growled into the phone before a moan escaped him when Momo freed his vast organ from her mouth and began sucking his large, full, family jewels. She stroked him with vigor as she passionately suckled on his sacs. Izuku threw his head back from pleasure. This was his greatest weakness. "I think she heard you," he said into the phone before hanging up. "She's in complete control," Izuku thought as he remained captive to his girlfriend's oral skills. Momo hummed a beautiful tune as she drenched his balls in saliva. She freed his right sac with an audible pop and took his large, left testicle into her mouth. She could feel his cum churning in his sac that barely fit in her mouth. Using her free hand she continued to stroke him. Izuku's moans were becoming more frequent. She always loved it when Izuku was pleased. He's always been the one to make her orgasm out of her mind, but she was getting to a point she could satisfy him, and that made her happy. She was never against sucking Izuku's testicles, she just didn't know he liked it so much, and they were very attractive. She freed his sac from her mouth, giving him a sensual look as she sandwiched his shaft in between divine breasts. "He feels a bit thicker than before," she thought as she pumped her breasts up and down his slick shaft, the effect showing in Izuku's moans. "It seems we've both grown since last time," Momo said, excitedly as gave him a slow pleasurable titifuck. "Yeah, the Yairapai are becoming more godly every day," Izuku said slyly. She looked at him sexily. "Does that bother you?" "Not at all," he said sexily as he smiled at her. He gripped her boobs, exciting her, and started thrusting his hips up with Momo lapping at his tip. Momo was so wet right now her panties were no good, her moisture soaking them. She became more excited as Izuku used her, his length sliding smoothly between her breasts and into her eager tongue. His pre-cum began to leak. It was so warm and sweet she happily licked as it flowed from his tip. Outside the room, Ashido and Jiro had their ears to the room, trying to listen intently on what was going on inside. "What's happening, Jiro? I can barely hear." The long earlobe girl had one of her jacks sticking into the door. Based on the sound waves she was hearing, she was getting a relatively clear view of what was happening. "I think Yamamo is using her boobs on Midoriya. I'm hearing him moan a bit, and there's this other sound I can't make out." Ashido smiled excitedly. "Well, no mortal man could resist Momo's luscious titties. Still, I didn't know our class rep got down like that." Several thoughts went through her head as she tried to listen for more. "I want to just look at it. I wonder what it tastes like." Jiro may have been hesitant in the beginning but couldn't help from becoming excited at these developments. She had fun with Midoriya earlier, and genuinely enjoyed talking to him, much more than most of the guys in her class. "This feels kinda wrong, they're having a moment, you know." "Come on, Jiro, you know we can't pass this up." The Pinkette smiled slyly at the slightly shorter girl who was crouching. "You know what's happening in there better than me, so if you're not in the least bit wet right now we'll leave." Jiro went beet red at this, unable to lie about her panties that were currently becoming wetter by the moment. "Just a little," she said sheepishly before perking back up. "What's up?" "Midoriya just said something about a mating press." Dot. Back inside the room, Izuku put Momo in position. She was so wet he smoothly slid into her, filling her with every inch of him, becoming a blur as he fucked her. Oh my goodness! Oh! Momo yelled as her body rocked with pleasure. In a matter of minutes, Momo was laced by Izuku's thick cock and work with his godly sex skills and was coming like a whore. Her moans coupled with the sound of flesh hitting flesh filled the room along with the scent of their intimacy. She had no idea that raw, forceful sex could feel this good. Momo's face was simply adorable. Izuku loved her old face. He smiled sexily as continued to fuck her brains out, and she was a genius, so she needed a LOTOF fucking. Izuku. It's so good. Izuku locked eyes with her, giving her a charming smile. I know, I can't get enough. He was close to coming. He needed to do her like this more often. Momo could tell he was close as he pistoned into her, entering her womb and pleasuring every inch of her in places she didn't know she had. Izuku, kiss me. I want to kiss, she cutely pleaded. Izuku obliged by reaching behind her head and pulling her into a kiss, surprising Momo from how forceful it was. He became a blur of powerful trusts, setting off a wave of violent orgasms that tore through Momo. Her mind exploded from pleasure, their connection at the lips being the only thing barely containing the creation girl's orgasmic screams. Izuku reached his climax, and with a final thrust he released into his lover and painted her insides white. Momo's eyes widened and her body shook from her womb, bloating with his seed, with her whole body trembling from orgasm. She couldn't stop her legs from spasming, and she felt their mixture overflowing and leaking from her. Momo was breathing heavily. Izuku held her lovingly. They stayed like this for a moment before Izuku got off and out of her. Izuku was still rearing to go while Momo needed a minute. The look on her face was that of a satisfied woman, ready for more. Izuku. That was amazing, she said through deep breaths. Definitely. He checked his phone and saw he had a little over half an hour. Izuku rolled onto his left side, smiling sexily as he looked her in the eyes. I've still got time, gorgeous. Are you up for another round? Momo lightly giggled through her deep breaths. You're so insatiable, Izuku. For you. Always. He came in and planted a loving kiss on her lips. Momo brought her left hand to his cheek to deepen the kiss. The two broke apart. I fully plan on making the most of your time left. She turned towards the door. And I'll enjoy it more once you two get out of here. Ashido and Jiro. The two girls outside the door immediately booked it, squealing that they'd been found out. Izuku chuckled lightly. Didn't know those two were voyeurs. Neither did I. Momo noted the times she's caught Jiro eyeing her while changing and the times Ashido's groped and made comments about her body. Uraraka has even tried to cop a feel on several occasions. They're fine. My classmates are just a bit quirky. Izuku chuckled at those words. I can definitely see that. Enough about them. She grabbed his dick and lightly stroked it, getting him hard again quickly. Our time is finite, you've flipped my switch. She brought her leg over him and raised herself above his eager manhood. So you better take responsibility before you leave today. She smiled sexily at him as she lowered herself on his cock, filling her again and turning her on. Izuku crossed his arms behind his head, laying back and relaxing as Momo cooed happily, and she started riding him. Though he initially took the day off, after speaking to Rumi he decided he was gonna go out tonight, and his girlfriend's sweet peach was definitely enough to energize him. Izuku finished with Momo. After saying their goodbyes with a promise to have a date this weekend, he left the dorms. He was alone as he made his way to the U.A entrance. As he made his way he sensed several familiar presences also making their way from the other side. That's when he spotted a familiar blonde girl and grey-net boy talking to each other. Taku? Melissa? The two registered the voice that called out to them. Turning, they saw their green-net friend. Aizu? Hey Midoriya, I didn't know you were here. The first years had their provisional exam today, so I came to show Momo my support. Melissa lit up. Those of us in the support course really worked hard on everyone's costume upgrades and support gear for the exam. I hope everyone passed. I can't speak for Class B, but I can say everyone in Class A passed except for Bakugo. Figures that a-hole would fail. Can't say I feel bad for him because I'm sure it was his own fault. Yeah, it wasn't too surprising. Where are you two coming from? We were just hanging out. Went to catch a movie and did some work in the lab, nothing too exciting. Taku answered confidently. Izuku shot a glance at the blonde who had a slight blush. Well, it looks like you both had fun. We definitely did, Taku said as she shot a glance at Melissa. The blonde noticed the way he was looking at her. She truly enjoyed this day. I'll see you later, Takumi. Definitely. She gave him a charming smile before she walked through the Udata barrier, leaving the two boys on the other side. Izuku looked between his friend and the girl who was walking away. Seems like you had a fun day. Taku smirked at him. Not as much as you, clearly. At least one of us got some today, he said before turning to walk away. It was easy to tell when Izuku just got some. Izuku caught up with him. What can I say? My girlfriend got her provisional license, so we needed to celebrate. Plus, I'm not gonna be able to see her as much with her living in the dorms now, so you know. Taku turned from him, smirking nonchalantly. I also can't relate to that. Can you try? No. Can you pretend to try? Taku paused for a moment. Yes, he replied stupidly. Anyway, do you have any plans? We can grab a bite before I head out. I thought you were taking the day off. While this city is pretty quiet at night, the rest of the region isn't so much. So you want to eat? Sure, let's go grab some tonkatsu, a chipper Taku said as they went on their way. The two boys made their way to the closest restaurant. They still had roughly an hour and a half before anything started closing down, so the sooner they went the better. The two friends talked about how they had to be back in school tomorrow, and some of the stories they'd be able to share with their classmates. They were almost to the shop when Izuku got an alert on his phone. It was a hero webpage he was subscribed to called Otaku Heroes. It had all the latest news in the hero community and was the first to release information before it was largely available to the public. It was so well renowned that they were the go-to for updates on any and everything going on in the hero world. Unbeknownst to him at the time, they were the first to announce one had merchandise. Izuku looked at his phone, his eyes narrow as he read a new report. Snake Hero, Uwabami found slain in her agency. Taku turned to him, noticing his shift. Aizu? His tone was concerning. Izuku quickly read the report. His expression was serious as it was pretty detailed. He looked Taku in the eyes. Uwabami was killed in her agency this afternoon. Taku's brown eyes narrowed at this. He could tell from the seriousness of Izuku's expression that this was serious. Uwabami? He wasn't entirely sure who she was. The Snake Hero. You know, the one who's always appearing in those cosmetic and fashion commercials. Taku paused for a moment. Oh, her. Do we know what happened? Otaku heroes usually come correct. I hope I'm wrong, but this sounds like Stain's handiwork. We knew he'd get back to work at some point, but with those injuries. Tachibana must have had someone who could heal him. That's the only thing that makes sense. Taku looked up into the dark, starry sky. Go handle that. You're the only one who can. I don't know why, but I get the feeling this'll be a long night. Sensing no one was around them, he quickly put on his beta suit, leaped into the air and flew towards Matsun. In an undisclosed location, the League of Villains was sitting in a warehouse, each doing their own thing. After being kicked out by Tachibana, Tamura sent the group out to recruit members to their cause. Since All for One was locked up, Tamura has done a lot of thinking, and what he wanted most was for the League to be happy, and for himself to destroy. The day came and went with nothing really happening with most of the League. He was thrown off a bit after seeing one's interview. He watched it with Toga and was surprised at what he said but didn't consider him an ally. As he watched the interview, just seeing him made him want to destroy the phone, but Toga, with a playful swipe of her knife, made him think otherwise as it was her phone. Dalby was out doing his own thing. Kurojiri was out looking for their secret weapon, so it was just himself, Magni, Toga, Spinner and Compress in the hideout. This wasn't a permanent stay, but for the time being it was something. The front door opened, and in the moonlight there were two figures. One was Twice, the other was a young man. He had brown hair, a green sweater over a yellow dress shirt with a gray tie, black jeans and gray low tops. But his most discernible feature was the red plague mask he wore over his mask and the white gloves on his hands. Shigaraki had only seen him once in a photo, but he remembered his name because All for One was sure his organization would make a powerful ally. It was Kai Chisaki, aka Overhaul. "Well, now you brought us a big catch, huh, Twice?" Overhaul took a few steps. "That's rich coming from you. The League of Villains," he said, unimpressed. Magni was confused, feeling like this guy seemed important. "What gives? Is this guy famous or something?" "My master showed me a picture of him once. He's what you'd call Yakuza. The young head of the Shai Hasaikai." Shigaraki narrowed his eyes at their guest. "So what do we owe the pleasure?" "Matsun Police Department." One landed in front of the station and quickly made his way inside. While heroes fall in the line of duty all the time, this was one of those times he needed to seriously look into the murder. He made his way through the station, and after asking around, some police who were working the case allowed him in on details involving Uwabami's murder. One stood in a room along with several officers. They were all going through evidence and looking over crime scene photos. He made a note to swing by the coroner before he left. One held a photo of Uwabami's corpse on the floor in front of her desk. Her eyes were open, completely lifeless, showing the killer could care less about her peace. This was more than just a murder. It was an assassination. One thought aloud. A cop going through evidence turned to him. "We got that idea too. The cuts on the body show her death, while brutal, was quick and simple. Whoever did this wanted her to feel it and know it was them." "I agree." Her eyes weren't even closed to give at least some respect to her passing. He looked to all the cops in the room. "So this is how you found her?" "Nothing was touched or removed until we arrived. Phone records actually say she sent out a distress signal with her location around 3:15, but less than 2 minutes later it was cut. Meaning the killer destroyed the phone." He spread out a few photos. "This attack was quick. The killer got in, did what he wanted and left." The more one studied the photos, the more it was looking like Stain was behind this. This gash in her chest was the initial strike. She most likely sensed her attacker. The sentient snakes in her hair would have alerted her. But the layout of the office would have put her in a disadvantageous position against someone with considerable speed. "You think she noticed the killer and had them come to her?" "She was as far from any exit as she could have been, and fighting would have been her only option given she was alone." One sighed. "I'm going to speak to the coroner. Thank you for letting me in on the investigation." He bowed his head to the officers before leaving the room. One of the officers called to him before he walked out. "Do you have any idea who may have done this? Uwabami is a rescue hero. She's not likely to be targeted by villains." One stopped, choosing whether or not to share his suspicions. "She was killed with no chance of fighting back. She's definitely off the radar of most villains. I can only think of one person who'd want to harm her. I fear the hero killer may be back in business. Killing a hero like Uwabami definitely fits his MO." He left the room and headed towards the coroner. He was able to quickly examine the body and saw the injuries were comparable to the rest of Stain's victims. Numerous brutal cuts, with the killing stroke being a stab to the heart. She didn't have a single defensive wound, just like every other one of Stain's victims. He needed to find him and stop him. If his MO was still the same as it appeared, he was still in the city somewhere, and he was going to find him. Tartarus prison. It was past midnight, in a submarine silently making its way towards the isolated prison on the water off the coast. Altogether the group included Tachibana, Ryuya Kazumaki, the hero killer, Stain, Satsuki Mimori, and 2 other members. One was a tall man with slick back white hair, a well-kept beard and blue eyes, dressed in extravagant clothes with the appearance of a gentleman. The other was a short young woman with raspberry red hair styled in pigtails, She had pink eyes with purple rings and dark circles over them. Her outfit was elaborate with baggy white pants, boots, a purple dress shirt with a heart design, white gloves and a large white bow at her neck. She was on a laptop doing the job she'd been recruited for and was almost done. They would be at Tartarus soon and everyone was gearing for action. "How are things coming, La Brava?" the man asked the short woman. She looked up at him happily. "I'm almost done, Gentle. Pretty soon the whole world will see your biggest scheme yet." Gentle laughed playfully. "Thank you, my dear. Fortune has truly favored me. However, this is only the beginning," he said theatrically. "Still, I'm a little worried, Gentle." The white-haired man gave her an interested look. La Brava turned to her right, spotting Stain, who was sitting down, seemingly meditating, and was disturbingly calm. "That's the hero killer, Stain. You've been out there way longer than he has, but he's more famous than you. I saw stores have merch of him at the mall." Gentle turned to the serial killer. He gripped his chin, smiling slyly. "He is a rather dangerous fellow." As he said this, Tachibana came into the space where they all were, followed by Kazumaki. "All right, team, E.T.A's in 5 minutes. I'm assuming I don't have to go over the plan again." Gentle turned to her. "Actually, Tachibana, I'd like a refresher." She sighed. "Of course you would." She turned to La Brava, who slightly jumped from her gaze. "Before I get into it, how are we on disabling the security system, itty bitty?" "I've been working on it since we left the mainland. All I have to do is hit a key and the system will be down for 5 whole minutes." Her words were confident as she pumped her fists in the air. "Good to know recruiting you wasn't a waste. That being said, I was genuinely surprised to see you had your own submarine," Gentle stated as he looked around. Taki closed her eyes, smiling slyly. "In my previous life, I stole this from a villain group. Fun fact, villains don't even need to be guilty for heroes to kill them and steal their shit." Stain opened his eyes. "Once we liberate your friend, we can start on eliminating those who taint the concept of hero more than anyone else, right?" "Correct. That's why I recruited you, Stain. I knew you'd be on board with this," Tachibana said chipperly. The hero killer closed his eyes, continuing his meditation, preparing to storm the most secure prison in the country. Tachibana faced the group. "Here's the plan. La Brava disables the security system. We take that 5-minute window to create a commotion and make our way to where Tsutsumi is being held. Stain, Gentle and La Brava are with me. Gale will wreck the prison and keep the guards occupied. I've got the map memorized and know where to go. If you need a final study, it's in the control room. If a few villains notice the lapse in security and break out, the better for us. It'll create an adequate distraction. The plan is to go in, retrieve the target and get out, and Satsuki will stay here ready to ship us out. Any questions?" Everyone was quiet. The only sound heard was the functions of the sub and La Brava's typing. "Good." Kazumaki nonchalantly raised his hand. "I get it's late, but are there any chances heroes may show up to stop us?" "There's only one hero who could possibly get here fast enough to do something. That's assuming he's still on patrol. And even if he is, he's most likely on the other side of the country looking for you," she answered, looking at Stain, who didn't acknowledge her. "Tachibana, we're on the east side of the prison. We're ascending now," Satsuki, who was driving, stated through the intercom. "Well, that's the signal, people. La Brava, no hitting that key until I say so. And final warning." She gestured to her in Gentle. "If your internet-famous bullshit slows you down and you can't keep up, know that I don't have one problem leaving both of you." Gentle smiled confidently. "That won't be a problem, milady." "Yes, ma'am," the sorter woman responded, not wanting to fail as the only reason they were here was because of her master hacking skills. When Tachibana and Satsuki found her, it was agreed that they could be a part of this operation only if Gentle could come too. She loved her Gentle and would do whatever it took for him to achieve his dream. The sub came to the surface. At the moment they were unseen by any guards of the prison. "It's time," Kazumaki said with a smirk. Everyone prepared to storm the prison. La Brava deactivated the security system, but she quickly noticed that she alerted an outside server of what she did. Tachibana? What? She asked, slightly irritated from the worry in the redhead's voice. I don't know who, but someone outside the prison was monitoring the security system. They know it's down and what we're doing. Taki grit her teeth. Damn it all, everyone move! She ordered as they all infiltrated the prison. Matson. One was skulking around the city, sure Stain was still here somewhere when he got a call from Intech. One? What's up, bro? One asked, not trying to sound annoyed from the fact he still hasn't found Stain. I was hoping you'd still be on patrol. Long story short, I'm in the lab. I just got an alert saying the security system at Tartarus is down. Some a-hole hacked into it, but they were either smart enough not to, or not good enough to take it over, just temporarily shut it down. I'm trying to get it back online ASAP, but you should know it's being raided right now with a prison break likely on the rise. How the hell does someone breach your system? Your encryption is nigh on unbreakable. That's what I'm trying to figure out. While I'm trying to figure this out, you might want to get to Tartarus. On it. One stated confidently before leaping into the air, kicking off the air and soaring towards the prison. Who the hell could break into Tartarus? Is someone trying to break out all for one? The thought worried him. Gotta move fast. With a powerful kick he blasted off. Tartarus prison. The facility was in chaos. Littered with the downed bodies of guards who failed to stop the invaders, all while several buildings were being attacked and falling. For the moment, the villains caged inside didn't register that they were free to try and break out. The rescue team made their way down, reaching their desired floor. Any and everyone who got in their way was brutally taken down, Tachibana moving so fast no one knew what hit them, quickly incapacitating the guards. They arrived at a door, and with a powerful kick Tachibana kicked it in. Going inside, they found a woman with dark blue hair with pink highlights, purple eyes, a curvaceous build wearing an orange prison jumpsuit laying on a bed. The cell was crisp white with machine gun torrents ready to gun her down if she acted up or used her quirk. Tachibana locked eyes with the imprisoned woman. Hey Tsutsumi, been a while, hasn't it? The convict smiled back at her. It took you long enough. She ran to them and they all made their way back to the sub. She noted how a white-haired man seemed to be putting on a show as a short red-haired woman recorded him. What the hell is happening right now? It's perfectly fine if you leave them. We needed that hacker to disable the security system. If they can't keep up and get left behind, then fine. Stop, villains! A mob of guards ordered. Before the group of villains could take a step, a door to one of the prisons busted open. Out walked Muscular in a tattered prison uniform. His upper body rippled with muscle fibers. I almost didn't notice the security was down. I'm gonna need you fuckers to show me where the exit is. His words were not a request. Another door burst open and a villain came out. Crawling on all fours was a bald-headed moonfish. He launched blades from his teeth that skewered and hacked at several guards, forcing Tachibana's group to jump back. Gentle kept his composure but was thrown off by the bloodlust of the newly escaped villains. Several other doors along the hall burst open with more villains attempting to escape. It's definitely time for us to make our exit. He waved his hand, making a wall of elastic air, trapping the villains and guards behind them. Then let's go, Tachibana stated. The surface level of Tartarus had become a scene of utter chaos as guards tried to contain the ensuing chaos. A massive tornado of razor-sharp wind was tearing the facility to shreds. Multiple prisoners on the upper levels had taken advantage of the lapse in security and had broken free from their restraints and broken free from their cells. The guards were at the mercy of the increasing number of escapees. Everyone was doing their best to fight back, but many were mercilessly cut down. It had barely been 3 minutes, and the entire prison shook from the uproar. At the lowest floor, All for One sits in the highest secured cell. He's bound and restrained to a chair, his life support equipment still functioning. He notices the security has fallen. Many thoughts go through his head as a big smile spreads across his lips. Floating above the prison, watching his deadly tornado rage on the prison, was Gale Breeze. He had been tasked with causing a distraction while the system was down and allowing the others to sneak in to get Tsutsumi. He was admittedly curious of the type of person she was given. Tachibana was willing to go this far just to free her. He heard several loud booms in the distance, seemingly getting closer. Turning behind him in the dark night, he spotted a figure rocketing across the ocean towards the prison. It didn't take a genius to know who this was. Just as Tachibana said, he might show up, and here he was. Time for a strategic withdrawal. He dispersed his tornado before becoming transparent, invisible to the naked eye, and silently flew away. The group made their way back to the surface. The surface was a wreck. Buildings and even the walls were sliced and battered. Well, Gale did his job, Tachibana commented, not sensing him anywhere. Stop spinning to his credit and come on, Stain ordered, taking the lead and heading towards the eastern wall where the sub was on the other side. A wave of villains was not far behind them. La Brava, who longer until the security system goes back online? Gentle asked his partner. We should have about a minute left. Just then there was an alarm, alerting that the security system was back online. Defensive measures were activating and was signaling for help. Or not, the blue-haired woman lowly spat. There was a loud crash, catching the attention of everyone. One stood confidently amongst a wave of villains and prison guards. Before you do something you're going to regret, you may want to go back to your cells right now, he said to the escaped villains. All eyes fell on him. Many rushed to attack him, but a wave of pressure passed over everyone, causing many prisoners to lose consciousness. He spotted Tachibana's group amidst the fallen villains. He recognized his old senpai, Stain, and the prisoner standing with them was vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place her at the moment. Tachibana made eye contact with him. Well, if it isn't one. So you were behind this. Do you have any idea what you've done? Of course, that's why I did it, she answered shamelessly. She put a hand on Tsumi's head, who was crouched down, trembling and breathing heavily. I only really came for this one right here. She was falsely imprisoned in this place, and I promised to get her out. Her eyes narrowed, drifting to the right. We're leaving, and you have other problems. She grabbed the woman and jumped away as Stain did the same. Gentle and La Brava were trembling from his wave of willpower. Gentle quickly realized what was coming and grabbed the trembling La Brava and leaped into the air. One sensed multiple presences approaching, and the next moment Muscular smashed to the surface. A wave of villains behind him. Sweet freedom! The villain bellowed. He was aiming for Tachibana's group, but they leaped away too fast. I wouldn't be so sure of escaping if I were you. Muscular turned to the voice. A violent smile spread across his lips. You! He had a wave of villains behind him, and he just wanted to escape. But at seeing one, all he wanted was a rematch. His body became fully enveloped in muscle fibers. Oh yeah! Time for round 2! Before he could lunge at the hero, he received a brutal elbow strike that sent him crashing into the wall of the prison, making a large crack in the wall, laying in it unconscious. The horde of villains saw Muscular get taken out so easily. Even after making it to the surface, they all stopped in their tracks, looking to the back of the hero. I didn't want to do that. One turned to face the shocked villains. Seeing that several of them had blood on them he doubted was theirs. Before you try to escape this place, remember you're here for a reason. Have some honor, return to your cells and humbly serve your sentences. His words were calm. He couldn't sense Tachibana's group anymore. He heard the sound of more guards mobilizing, and these should be the last of the escapees. The villains could sense how serious he was. Moonfish launched blades at him. One disappeared in a flash of speed, dropping below the cannibal and kicking him in the chin, shattering his teeth and knocking him out. The villains tried to gang up on him, with one skillfully taking out all of the escapees and dropping them. Armed prison guards arrived at the scene. You all wrangle them back up. Help any of your fellow guards that may be injured. I have to check something, he ordered before booking to the stairs heading to the lowest level of the prison. In tech? One called his sidekick, knowing he was monitoring. I'm here. I got the system back on. A little over 100 prisoners escaped their cells. I'm looking at the camera feed right now. He's still there," he said, clearly surprised. "What?" One thought aloud, genuinely confused. "I don't know, there's no way he didn't know the security was down. For some reason he chose not to escape." "What are you planning, all for one?" Seconds later, one was standing in front of the villain's secure cell. Invisibrate. Vibrating his molecules, he phased through the cell door where he found the villain bound to a chair, life support equipment hooked to him and machine gun turrets aimed at him. The cell was crisp white. There was a large prison glass wall that divided the room with a white counter and a chair in front of it. "Well now, today has certainly been full of surprise visits. First All Might, now you've come to pay me a visit. Should I feel honored?" he asked, smiling and his tone charismatic. One narrowed his eyes at the villain, taking a few steps before answering him. "All Might was here?" "Yes, he and I had a lovely chat. I figured now that he's powerless, he could commit more of his time to teaching. But he still found time for little old me. I guess he didn't want to miss seeing you in this place. I'm sure even this is better than you deserve. I suggest you get used to this stifling atmosphere because you're not going anywhere." All for One chuckled lightly. "You really think that, don't you? I noticed the security had fallen. You're really going to stand there and say that like you didn't think I'd be gone from here? I had roughly a 4-minute window to free myself and warp away, you know." He smiled confidently as he spoke. One kept stern eyes on the villain. "Why didn't you?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Is it because even if you had escaped, you know I'd have hunted you down? While I'm sure a game of cat and mouse with you would be fairly entertaining, I chose to stay in here for the time being for reasons." One stood in front of the glass. "Is Shigaraki the reason? Perhaps? Am I to assume Tachibana made her move?" One glared at him, thinking she's changed because of him. "What did you do to her?" "I've done nothing to her. She told me of her aspirations once. I just wasn't expecting to be locked in her when she finally did it." One kept his stern expression. "I saw her. She formed a group, and said she only came here to free a woman who was falsely imprisoned here. Because she was," the villain stated confidently. Either he was trying to play him, or he was telling the truth. One couldn't tell. "What do you know?" "Not much. All I know is that she was a hero who killed a rather important person. Tachibana seemed very anxious to free her. I suspect they share a romantic past." One's mind flashed back to the prisoner Tachibana had broken out. "That woman was a hero. I thought she looked familiar. What was her name?" He shook off those thoughts for the time being. Wherever they were long gone by now. He couldn't chase after them before taking care of the prison situation, and Senpai knew that. "One? Tell me, how are things in the outside world? You really think I'm going to tell you that? Ha, you're even worse than All Might. Come now, you said it yourself, this place is stifling. My brain waves are constantly being monitored along with my vital signs, so much as a thought about activating my quirk and I'll likely be put down like a rabid dog. Trapped under layers of high-tech security, I'm not giving even the smallest opportunity to stimulate my mind in these conditions. Is that supposed to make me feel sorry for you?" The hero shot at him sarcastically. He chuckled. "No, I suppose it wouldn't, would it? Or more like, it couldn't. Now you're trying to get pity from me?" "No, I just want you to have a heart." "I do. If things were different, maybe you would have seen that." One paused for a moment. "What was the point? You devoted all this time to exploiting people's weaknesses, toying with innocent lives and being no less than a power-hungry thief. You said all you've ever done is restore order to the world, but everyone loses except you. Why?" He smiled brightly. "That you want to know. You and All Might forever holding on to such a tired topic. Even if I told you, I doubt you'll be satisfied, much less understand. There are some people who will never understand each other. Fine, I'll tell you. I want to be an absolute demon lord." One was thrown off by that statement. What? You heard correctly, one. I want to be an absolute demon lord. Never took you for a fan of fantasy manga. Well, you can blame my foolish brother for my interest in the genre. The point is, it's really that simple. I had a dream, and the power to see it enacted. If I could live forever inside my dream, what would be the point in making it a reality? Kinda like you. One clenched his fists. Don't you dare try and make a connection with me. Why not? It's the truth. His smile made one want to phase through the glass and punch him. A quirkless human like yourself who gained the power to achieve an impossible dream, instead of keeping it inside you strove to achieve it, amidst many hardships, I'm sure. The desire and ability to achieve one's dream. From that perspective, you are no different from me. One swallowed his retort, unable to deny he was right, as annoying as it was. But a demon lord? I've read my fair share of fantasy manga. You should know that never ends well, and if that means what I think it means, let me tell you now, it's definitely not gonna happen, he said sternly. All for One was amused. Oh, and what do you think it means? You want to be the highest figure of authority, power, and influence in the world, he answered seriously. The villain smiled. Something like that, he answered casually. One crossed his arms. This has everything to do with you. So why does it seem like you're grooming an idiot like Shigaraki to succeed you? Tamura is the king on my chessboard. He's the furthest thing from a pawn, and he holds a role in all of this. Comes with a rather delicious irony. Such as? He's the grandson of All Might's master, Nana Shimura. One's eyes widened at that revelation. Does All Might know? He found out this afternoon during our little chat. I'd been waiting a long time to see that look on his face. The son of a man who was abandoned by his hero mother, all to protect him from me. Grew up to hate heroes and abuse his son for his heroic desires. Irony doesn't get more delicious than that. He chuckled. Should you really be laughing right now? All for One kept smiling but stopped laughing. Whether that was a bad decision or not, she was the reason for All Might. One smiled confidently, pointing at him. And the demon lord with seemingly infinite potential ended up a barely alive potato head in that story. His smile faded and the hero sensed the villain's anger. So aside from becoming a demon lord, you want All Might's master's descendant to kill him in some sick twist of irony. News flash, it's never gonna happen. I'll find Shigaraki soon enough and put an end to the League of Villains. So confident. Surely you realize the League is just a byproduct of society's failures. Society has its faults, yes. As someone who also fell through the cracks, I can understand that, and I plan on changing things. To make a better world for everyone, not just myself. The villain's smile returned. Well, good luck with that. You won't tell me what's going on outside. Luckily for me, I have a very active imagination. The media's concern about All Might's retirement is mixing with their worries about Endeavor as the new de facto leader, the realization the symbol is gone, and the adjustment period should be starting right about now. People will begin to question the unity of Heroes Society. Meanwhile, those in the shadows are listening. They sense the growing instability caused by the vacuum All Might left, and will feel compelled to act. They'll band together in a common goal of changing how the world works. As for Tamura and his group, I feel they will lay low for a while, in order to make sure it's their organization on top in the end. Naturally, everyone will want to spread their power and influence, so there will be some infighting. If these scenarios play out the way I expect them to, I already know what's happening outside and can buy my time to leave. You want to know the best part about all of this? This has everything to do with All Might. The eventual rise in crime will be a result of him concealing his fading strength, overlooking those who may have needed a hero, and having a commitment to justice so black and white he's created more villains than he's stopped. Though the villain's words angered him, One kept his composure. He took a breath. You really think you know everything? It's laughable how much you underestimate people. You're right about one thing, All Might did leave a lot of cracks in the society he protected, and many people fell through those. But that doesn't mean we can be better and build each other up along with our society in a positive way. As I suspected, you're only slightly more pragmatic than All Might. Can you really say the country's problem can just be fixed? It may be idealistic of me, but I believe in true change. That peace, honor, and justice for everyone is possible. That may sound like noise to you, but humans can come together and understand each other. It starts from there, and it's a lesson passed from one generation to the next. If I didn't know better, I'd say you were trying to be the new symbol of peace. I was called a symbol of hope the other day, but definitely not. Just a hero. He turned towards the door. I'm leaving. Stay here, be a model prisoner, and don't give the guards any lip. I've enjoyed our talk. I'm sure you'll be back soon. Yeah, I'll be back. He began to walk away. After I paid the doctor a visit, he mumbled under his breath. What was that? I didn't quite catch it. Didn't know potatoes had ears. He responded before phasing through the door. Making it back to the surface, he saw that all of the villains had been rounded up and returned to their cells. Over 40 guards were injured with 23 confirmed dead. All of the prisoners were accounted for except for one, Kanat Tsutsumi. The warden didn't get into the details, but he told one about how she was a very special prisoner. He didn't say more than that. The news had arrived and was reporting on the attack. One scanned the area over the prison walls. Wherever Tachibana and her group went, they were long gone. After everything was settled, he leaped away from the prison before flying back to the mainland with Skywalk. A submarine was making its way to a hidden sea cave. The sub stops and a platform raises from under it, raising it towards the ceiling of the cave that opens up, revealing a large operating room. Once the moving stopped, they opened the hatch, and the first to step out was Stain. That's finally over. He grounded as he climbed out. La Brava and Gentle exited next. I got so much cool video, Gentle. I'll post this ASAP. Much obliged, La Brava. Tsutsumi got out next. She watched the duo celebrate for a moment. Those two are weird. They were a necessary annoyance. Well, they helped get me out of that hellhole, so I'm not complaining. She climbed out of the sub. Taki exited the sub. We may have had a hiccup of two, but this was a mission success. The only reason we got away was because one prioritized saving the injured guards and stopping those scums rather than chasing us. Are you complaining about that? Though I knew it was possible, I was still surprised to see he showed up. I knew he wouldn't chase us if he sensed a single person being injured, especially in a situation like that. Stain's expression was neutral. That's what makes him worthy. He turned to Tsutsumi. Now that we're in the clear, who exactly are you? Who exactly are you? She shot back. I'm Stain, the hero killer, he answered, giving a piercing glare. A hero killer? She was surprised by his introduction, and how he seemed proud of the title. Are you and I going to have a problem? We don't have to. Tachibana told me about the program. You were once a hero, a part of that like she was. She went this far to save you, so I want to know who you are and what your convictions are. She kept a black, serious expression. You want to know about my convictions? She met his gaze, unflinching. This fake world of heroes makes me sick to my stomach. I killed the head of the Public Safety Commission without an ounce of hesitation. Because that organization and the people in it are no different from the villains they actively lock up, or in many cases, kill. Starting today, we'll be working together for our mutual goals. I'm a former pro-hero, and my name is Lady Nagant. And there you have it, my extraordinary time-traveling companions. Part 12 of What If Deku Became Saitama has taken us on a whirlwind of excitement and left us craving for more. I hope you enjoyed this incredible chapter as much as I did, filled with heart-pounding action, surprising twists, and moments that touched our very souls. If you haven't already, make sure to smash that subscribe button and become part of our amazing community of curious minds. Your support means the world to us. Now it's your time to shine. Drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts, reactions, and wild predictions for what lies ahead. I can't wait to dive into some mind-bending discussions with you. And always remember, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and keep being the heroes of your own stories. Until our next adventure, this is Chronos, signing off with a big smile and a heartfelt thank you for being a part of this extraordinary journey.